Hello, guys and gals, and welcome. What you just listened to was a new song that I came up with, produced, I guess, basically by me, but the artist was Fran Fuzz. I had an idea on basically, well, like what would it be like if you made music out of the sounds of Diablo 2? And there's so many cool sounds, like the rune sound, the skull sound, the chainmail sound, and so forth and so on. And to be honest with you, it turned out really freaking good. The music is up for you guys to listen to today if you guys want to check it out. In fact, I would appreciate it if you go check it out and throw me a like. It is right here. I'm going to bring it up on stream real quick. The hidden music of Diablo 2. I've always kind of felt that the items in the game had an almost musical-like quality, and it really does. And I'm not sure if you guys caught it at the end there, but Bale screams at the end of it, which I think is absolutely hilarious. And you can check this out and watch it as many times as you want to. It's only 3 minutes and 13 seconds, so there's no in video ads. In fact, I actually would challenge all you guys to see if you can name every single sound that was used in the music. I mean, I can identify some of them right off the bat, like the potion and the skull and the rune and whatnot, but I don't know if you guys can name them all. There's quite a few Diablo 2 sounds used in the creation of this music. In fact, many of the things that just sound like maybe like a drum bass snare or something like that actually turn out to be something along the lines of like chainmail armor. And yeah, you'd be surprised how many sounds were snuck into the song unawares. Today we're going to be going over the patch notes. This is actually a picture from the apparently Diablo 4 patch notes. So if you guys are wondering what the hell this is, no, this is not some brand new samurai game. This is apparently some sort of new costume that's coming out with Diablo 4 Season 3. It was actually in the Diablo 4 news, which if we take a look at the Diablo 4 news page, they did have the well, we're hoping for patch notes soon. I'm assuming 1 p.m. That's my assumption. That's why we're streaming at 12 p.m. because I want to be here early, just to make sure that we actually get like a chance to see it before everybody else does. um, where was the? I can't remember where they had that thing posted. I think it's this one. Apparently, there's like a new cosmetic outfit. I don't really know about the cosmetic outfit, but the freaking wallpaper they made was banging. So I stole it. I stole the wallpaper for myself. Now I got the wallpaper up here. Oh yeah, it's my Taco Gun jacket. It was from Halloween. I just like it, so I just wear it now. That's my jacket. It's not a particularly warm jacket, and so I don't really wear it out like in the winter, but it's decent. Um, the sensual pet has me interested as a person who's very in love with pet-based classes. I know those of you out there that resonate with me. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. You love some pet-based classes. You be all up in the necromancer and all up on the druid summon, man, freaking wolf pack, and it's like maybe we have an unearthly fetish for summoned creatures, but I, this one seems really fun though. This is probably the closest to a mercenary. I'm not sure if you guys have actually thought about it like this, but this is the closest to a mercenary that we've gotten the entire time that Diablo 4 has been out. I mean, this is basically a mercenary. I mean, you have a immortal pet that essentially cannot die that you can equip with whatever you want to equip with. I mean, you've got 12 different governing stones and 27 tuning stones, and you can basically set this guy up however you want to. Um, so it's a lot like a mercenary. I mean, yeah, it's not a mercenary because you can't put equipment on them, which is a little bit of a bummer, but fully customizable would definitely be the term. It's the closest I think we've ever gotten to this, is literally just a freaking fully customizable mercenary that we can, to our very own standards, set up whatever we want to do with a guy. They kind of showed some pretty cool things yesterday, like the focus fire it's a channeling ray, and then they tied it together with I believe it was called the arcing support, which is the skill hits additional enemies. And it caused the ability to like chain through monsters, which was pretty darn cool. Not gonna lie, it was like having like it was like a triangle on the screen because it was like three monsters and it was like pew, pew, pew. Yeah, those are sound effects. That's right. I like to do sound effects. Apparently, they're broken up into categories though, so it's not quite as simple as we might think. So, according to one of the screenshots that we saw in the developer live stream, um, there was a picture of the essential inventory, and it kind of had like let me see if I can pull this up. It had them separated. Of course, you can't see it because I'm in the way. Hold on. How do I do this? I gotta move myself out of the way, don't I? I gotta move myself out of the way. I don't like moving myself out of the way. You see down here it says melee, range, and utility. So some of the governing stones are separated into categories, and I would assume that the tuning stones are also separated into the same categories. So like you probably can't put a stone with like a melee ability that was meant only for a ranged ability, for instance. My assumption on this is there's certain things like as an example, let's go back real quick and pull this one back up. As an example, like say you have the multi-shot, so there's a multi-shot one here, which basically makes it so your projectile attacks launch additional projectiles. Well, the thing is that it's for projectiles, right? Why can't I stop yawning? And it's not going to work with melee abilities. So you're probably not going to be able to use things like multi-shot or piercing with something like slash, which is a frontal AoE cone attack. So like that's not going to work because it's not an ability that actually uses that kind of stone. And yeah, I'm sure there's going to be some combinations that are just like, that does not compute, does not work, like not allowed. Like another one I can think of is like the focus fire is a channeling ability. And there's one down here that gives you an attack speed bonus. So like that's probably not going to work either because the channeling abilities don't get affected by attack speed and so forth and so on. So there may be certain combinations that like we're just not able to do. I count these real quick. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Okay, so I was trying to see whether the two additional like hidden ones, the ones that we don't know about, were in the number here or if they were in addition. So they said there was 27, which obviously yes, but there's 25 that they have listed here, and the two additional are not over the 27. It's just they're just two that we don't know about, the Evernight and the Genesis. And the funny thing is he has them equipped in this screenshots. There's the Genesis and the Evernight right there. It's too bad we can't see what they do. We did, however, get a good look during the live, kind of like at how they work. So basically, they level up from level 1 to 10, so they have ranks, and the effectiveness of the item increases depending on the rank. Oh yeah. Why can't I stop yawning? I didn't even stay up late last night or anything. I went to bed early. Yeah, here it is right here. So like when you look at the actual tuning stones, see it says rank 5 out of 10. So like they do have actually like level 1 to 10 ranks, and then on top of that they also have scaling effects. What scales on the effect seems to change. We kind of like went over a bunch of them as he was like playing with them because he was kind of like equipping his central with these things. And as he equipped them, we were able to, like I spy with my little eye sort of situation, going frame by frame, picking out frames of some of these. And there was like the poison support has like the spread chance on it. And then we got the registered damage support. This is the one that looks like the barber gem. I think this one is a barber gem. Like I'm fairly confident that this one is going to function very similarly to the barber gem, but only for the Sensual, which is actually quite interesting. Hmm. And then we go a little bit further. We see which one is this one? The initiative support. That's the one that causes the Sensual to teleport to the target if out of range. That one's kind of interesting. So the target, so she's like your Sensual is just gonna be teleporting all over the place if you use that one. I mean, there's tons of them in here. He has them like at various levels. I was actually more interested in the like combination of effects that you can achieve. There were some pretty cool examples of like how the Sensual, like when in combat actually, um, has like the multi-shot lightning as you can see here. And then there was another one where he was able to, like I say, chain. There you go. There's the chaining, incinerate beam basically, which is kind of cool. I mean, it seems like this guy is going to be a fun little companion to have along. Overall, I mean, if you're in a group and you've got like four of these things, which I'm assuming you would, it seems like you could dish out some pretty nice damage. And that's really going to be the crux of what's going on is are they actually going to be useful um, in all content, like all content. I think it's important, very important. If they're not useful in all content, could be devastating because like well think about it like if they're only useful up to like world tier 3 or they're only useful up to world tier 4 or like they're only useful up to like nightmare dungeon 30 or something like that and then shortly after you get into like nightmare dungeon 50 and they're just completely useless and they don't do anything right. I mean if they're not useful past a certain point then they basically become dead weight past a certain point. Now, I mean, at the very least, if they can't keep up in damage output, it does seem like there's a lot of ways that you can set them up for defensive. So you could do like the auto defense, which shoots down projectiles from like for instance corpse bows that are hiding in the freaking wings and try to kill you. This one actually sounds pretty cool to protect you against like the corpse bows. There's also the what is it? The reconstruct, which is a heal. The protect, which is a barrier. There's also one that generates fortify in here. There's a bunch of them. Like even in the tuning stones, there's ones that will like generate fortify. Fortify support, which gives you fortify, which would be nice. Resource support, which gives you resource generation. Um, so I mean, at the very least, if you feel like the essential is just completely useless and you can't rely on the essential for anything, it does seem like that there's ways that you could potentially set the essential up for utility or defensive aspects, or maybe a mix of both. and just not even worry about the damage output of the Sensual and just go straight for, defensive mechanics. Does the companion have an inventory? I don't know. Does he like pick up gold and stuff? That would be cool. I don't even know. It kind of does look like he has an inventory, or maybe that's just no, that's just our inventory, because that's the season tab, and then there's the equipment consumable quest, and I don't know what that is. What is this up at the top though? Is that the Sensual? And then that's the rogue. So this is what a rogue. Yeah, that's a rogue. So maybe that is his own inventory. I don't know. I guess he does have an inventory because I'm assuming here that you have to click on the rogue to get access to the rogue character, and this whole panel. Everything about this panel is for the Sensual. They are giving us an extra stash tab, so that's kind of nice. I fill up all my stash tabs anyway, like all the time. I need like 13 more stash tabs than what they give us. I need at least like 13 more stash tabs. Or more. Or more. Or more. There were some interesting items that they had revealed in the thing, and I was kind of interested in making perhaps a lightning druid this season. Could be really interesting. Diablo 4.life. Let's go over to Diablo 4.life and let's play around with this real quick, just as a lull. So, the druid has a lot of crazy stuff when it comes to lightning, and there's like a whole bunch of crazy aspects with lightning. There's the lightning storm, critical spawn 3 dancing bolts. There's overcharged aspect, which is 20% chance when dealing lightning damage to overload the target for 3 seconds, causing any direct damage you deal with them to pulse. Additional damage to surrounding enemies. Storm claws aspect, which is that's shred. That's not the one we're looking. Runeworker's Conduit, which is critical strikes with storm skills, can cast charge the air around you for 1 to 2 seconds, causing a lightning bolt to periodically hit an enemy in the area for X lightning damage. The duration can be extended with additional critical strikes. There's like all these crazy like lightning things that you can freaking put on the druid. And then on top of that, of course, the druid has all the crazy lightning stuff like free lightning strikes and like if the monster's immobilized, additional lightning damage, and just like absolutely insane levels of additional lightning they can just spam on the target. Not even to mention the boon tree, which also has the overload ability, which does another static discharge to enemies around you. Um, I think the druid could be a freaking winner this season with the lightning. Probably going like full lightning tree, overload, like every lightning ability that you can possibly go through. And I'm not even sure about the Sensual in this, but the new unique item, which was the unique item? It was a pair of gloves, I think. I think it was gloves. I'm not sure if he has the new unique gloves on here yet. They are only like just released. They were released in the patch here. But basically, it just goes along with the theme, right? So it's just we're gonna find out about the other unique items today. I'm sure there's 6, and we only found out about 2 of them during the developers live stream. Um, but if we take a look in the dev live stream, I'm pretty sure they're sitting in here somewhere. Yeah, here they are. All right, so there's the lightning storm one right there. It's a lightning storm gains 1 additional strike each time it grows. Lightning storm critical strikes cause lightning to strike twice with 20% increased damage, and it basically just makes lightning storm kind of insane. It's actually pretty well crafted too. It's got crit, it's got the skill, and it also has lucky hit. It could potentially be a little bit better, but I mean, Lightning Storm is a channeling ability, but the way that they have it set up is it's kind of like a exponential increase in the amount of lightning strikes that are happening at any given moment, basically making it into kind of like a crazy just spamming lightning. So the general idea here would be to go with all of the other crazy spamming lightning effects, which also exceedingly, like make the druid just stack more and more lightning. I mean, critical strike spawning the 3 dancing bolts would definitely be a good one, and then throwing in the rune. What is that one? It's like the rune charge or whatever. The rune worker's conduit. I think this is a big one too because it charges all the enemies around you, and every single time you get a crit, it continues to increase in duration. And I've actually found that you can keep this one up permanently. It's super easy to keep this one up like all the time. And then of course in the Paragon tree you would stack like pretty much everything you could for damage to lightning. So Thunderstruck is your storm skill multiplier. So that would be what you would go with for this. And it has the 20%. Increases damage equal to times 20% of your damage versus close and damage versus distant bonuses. So you would basically just be stacking as much damage versus close and damage versus distant that you could. Thank you for the subscription, random. I cannot read that name. Boy, I don't even know what that says. What is it? I'm sure it's just some fancy font. It's probably just a fancy font. It doesn't even look like it's actually letters. I don't know. I'm gonna zoom in on it. What time is the patch notes? It should be in about 34 minutes. 34 minutes turn on. That's when we're expecting them to go live. They usually go live at 1 p.m. Unless they're late, which is usually the case. It should be 1.23, which is usually what they do when they go to a major revision. Or 1.3 or 1.23. I don't even know. Like, what are we at right now? We're at 1.23. Did they go up major revisions? I think I might have actually messed up the thumbnail. No, because see, look, they go 1.1 and then to 1.2 and then 1.2, which is what we've been on for a while. Because we're going to a major revision, it should be going to 1.3. I mean, I guess if I got it wrong, I'll just change the patch note video thumbnail and the title. But it should be a major revision. Anytime they do minor revisions within a season, it's always a point, like 1.02 or 1.02D or whatever, 1.03. And then when they do major revisions, they always go up 0.1. These are major revision patches, and as you can see, we've only had a couple major revision patches, like total. 1.1, 1.2, and then finally this one will be 1.3, or at least it should be anyway. We can kill some time by trying to craft up this character. Let's see what we can do. We know that it's gloves, so we're going to have to consume the glove slot. I mean, honestly, let's just put a unique there. Not necessarily the unique that we want, but let's just throw a Fist of Fate there as a placeholder. Just to tell ourselves that we're using the new unique gloves. And then when Proner gets a chance and he updates the database with all the new unique items, we'll go that route. Now for this character, I'm pretty sure we're going to be using lightning. Let's go ahead and full screen this. Close the ads so we can actually see. I'm not sure what skill we'd use. Probably Wind Shear. I'm not entirely sure which one I would want to use for the basic. I don't know necessarily if I'd want to be in melee range as a caster type. Storm Strike is strictly melee, and Wind Shear at least has some ranged ability. I think I'm going to need that movement speed. Let's go ahead and grab that. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to stack Lightning Storm. And we're going for the crazy number of strikes. So it gives you one additional lightning strike, and then the unique item gives you an additional lightning strike for each second that you channel. And then we get more lightning strikes for the crits, so that makes that kind of crazy. Basic skills generate more spirits. So we probably want wild impulses too. I would assume it's kind of like a no-brainer there. And then we're probably not going to be transforming. We already managed to get all the way over here, didn't we? Now, I'm thinking Poison Creeper probably becomes a part of this because it immobilizes everything. There's this whole thing is about immobilizing targets. Like, there's tons of like things that have to do with immobilizations within the tree. When you come up here and you look, you'll see there's what is it? Lucky hit up to a 10 to 30% chance when dealing damage to vulnerable, immobilized, or stunned enemies. That a lightning bolt also hits them, dealing 55% damage. So we're going to want that. Then we're going to take electric shock, which is lucky hit, dealing lightning damage to enemies, has a 24% chance to immobilize them. And then if the target is already immobilized, the lightning damage dealt to them is increased by times 21%, which is what we want. We also want the free lightning strikes too, just like tons of free lightning strikes. Why not? And then let's see here. Defensive posture, thick hide, unrestrained. I'm trying to think what we want to go through for here. Whether we want to go to Cataclysm. Do we want Cataclysm? I don't know. I mean, Cataclysm is definitely a fun one. We definitely need some kind of defensive skill. As a caster type, we might want to go with Cyclone Armor to knock them all away from us. I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea. And it does count as storm magic as well, so I would go with the Preserving Cyclone. And then from here, we're probably going with Perfect Storm. And I don't know what the hell we put the rest of our points in, to be honest. We pretty much just max out all these. We could, of course, also go with increasing the duration of Cataclysm, just so that's like nearly always up as well, which that would actually be pretty OP. And then we probably want to go with Vigilance. So we get the damage reduction every single time we pop Cyclone Armor, which would be helpful. Increased damage distant enemies, double this bonus if they are also slowed, stunned, or immobilized. Take that one as well. And then we're not really taking a lot of shapeshifter stuff, so we're probably not going to want to use that. Critical strike chance, close enemies, and then this is Werebear Werewolf. Trying to think here what else we want to go with. I mean, over here in this tree is the stuff that swaps back and forth. I mean, one thing we could do is, since this is a nature magic skill, we could utilize this one for the damage to elites. We could grab this one for the healing, which will give us the 3% heal every single time we use a spirit skill. What's up, M Trey? We got patch notes today. That's what's going on. They should be popping up here anytime now, about 27 minutes from now. Now these two right here specifically deal with switching back and forth between Earth and the Storm skills, which I don't really have the ability to. But what I was thinking, well, I mean, it just doesn't really work out as well as it would seem. I'm not really entirely sure how I'd get the most out of something like this. I mean, one way I could do it is I could go with Earth Spike instead of Fierce Wind Shear. And then going with Earth Spike would give me the swap back and forth between the two elements. But I'm not really sure how that's going to work out since Lightning Storm is a channeling ability. And channeling abilities, I'm not really sure how they snapshot that kind of stuff. Like if I use the Earth skill and then switch to Lightning Storm, does it just immediately like give the entire Lightning Storm that multiplier until I let go of the button? Which seems pretty powerful. In which case, I probably would want to take 3 and 3 and these two, and then maybe swap out this one for this one. Probably doing something like to either the immobilization or the fortify. I don't really know which. Probably the fortification. So, I mean, my bar would probably look something like this. So, Earth Spike, Lightning Storm, Cataclysm on the number 4. And then my, like, primary spam skill would probably be Poison Creeper, just so I could get the free immobilizes. And then Cyclone Armor as my defensive. And then I guess I could just use Earthen Bulwark as another defensive. It doesn't necessarily have to be like 2 offensives. If I'm trying to get fortification, you know, it could be fun is going with the wolves. We could maybe go with the wolves. So there's a unique item, and I don't know if I could really work it into the build, but it's called Storm's Companion, which is where the wolf companions are infused with the power of the storm, dealing lightning damage and gaining the Storm Howl ability. It could be kind of fun to combine that into the build and just see how it works. I just don't really know how well it would actually work. Having storm wolves, or even how useful they would really be. The thing about the wolves is that the wolves can be really useful even outside of damage output, just as a method to gain fortification. They give you a 40% chance to fortify for 8% maximum life. So it's just like an additional little thing that you could throw in. I'm sure I could like pull a point or two from somewhere for a chance to get some additional fortify. Like this one in particular right here, I'm not entirely enthused about. I think, honestly, that one could probably go entirely, but it looks like we have more than enough points here. I could even throw 2 in there by taking that one away. I mean, it's either the wolves with the fortification, or I go with, like, Earthen Bulwark or something like that, and go that route. I mean, I could also maybe take the Poison Creeper away and just go straight for the wolves. I might have enough immobilizations with Electric Shock anyway, because Electric Shock is a 24 chance to immobilize. But the thing about Electric Shock is it also gives a multiplier if they're already immobilized, and so having them be immobilized on a regular basis certainly isn't terrible. It's only a 1-second immobilization, though. So maybe it's just not worth it going for Poison Creeper. Maybe I just go with like full wolves or something instead. I'm sure this is something that I could play around with as I go throughout the game. Let's see here. So we're definitely going to need some kind of defensive ability. I mean, we could go with the Cyclone Armor also provides physical damage reduction, since we're actually using Cyclone Armor. And then, you know, like, oh, why not a Harlequin crest? Because that's going to be likely early on in the game, right? I'm totally going to get myself a Harlequin crest like really early in the game. It's totally going to happen, guys. It's totally going to happen. Totally. Trying to keep my eye on the clock. What's up, Kyle? I feel like I'm going to need movement speed. Wind Strikers might be a good play here. Just so that I get constant movement speed every single time I'm critting targets. Or maybe Aspect of Slaughter, just for the additional run walk. I could also potentially go with Flicker Step. I was thinking about that for the ability to keep my Cataclysm running constantly, like full-time Cataclysm. That could be kind of interesting too. Just 100% Cataclysm all the time. All right, so for lightning aspects, I actually want like a bunch of these, which I don't even know how many of these I can actually work into the character. But what do I want to go with? One-handed or two-handed? I don't even know. I don't really want to go with Great Staff of the Crone. Butcher's Cleaver and Waxing Gibbous are kind of out. I don't need fears and slows. I'm trying to think whether it would be better to have the two-handed aspect or whether it would be better to go with two one-handed aspects on this character. The overcharge aspect, from what I remember, doesn't really go up very much. It's kind of an odd one. Like it's like a lucky hit, up to a 10 to 20% chance when dealing lightning damage to overload a target for 3 seconds, causing credit. You know, any direct damage you deal to them will pulse to surrounding enemies. Direct damage though is actually physically hitting the target, like with my. I guess. Well, yeah. I guess Earth Spike would probably count as direct damage. So I guess that would work just fine. But I'm thinking about overcharged aspects, the Rune Worker's Conduit, which is a really powerful one. That one I think is probably one of the better ones because the duration of it just continually increases every single time you crit. And so you just get more and more crits, and the more and more crits you have, the more and more seconds you get. And it basically just gets to the point where it's always on, and you really don't even have to worry about it. Then we also have the Lightning Dancers aspect, which gives us just a bunch of free lightning bolts, just like spamming around the field. I mean, basically, the entire kind of like gist of this character is let's have as much lightning as we possibly can, just everywhere that we can possibly have lightning, and see how well that works. Patch late? I don't think it's late. It should be up here eventually. Sometimes it shows up on the launcher before it shows up on here, by the way. I've actually seen that a couple times. Just kind of trying to see what else I can throw on the build, just for the fun of it. Yeah, just playing around with this new unique. The Lightning Storm unique, just trying to see what I can make out of the Lightning Storm unique. So Earthen Might key passive also applies to your Storm skills. What's the Earthen Might key passive? I vaguely remember, but and why would that be better than the one that we're using right now? So Earthen Might is the one where it's lucky hit, damaging enemies with Earth skills has up to a 5% chance to restore all of your spirit, cause your attacks to be guaranteed critical strikes for 5 seconds. This chance is increased by 10% for critical strikes, 10% if the target is stunned, immobilized, or knocked back. So basically it would give us like infinite spirit. So we get either a 15% times multiplier for attacking an immobilized, slowed, or vulnerable enemy. And potentially just giving us tons of spirit back whenever we cast a storm skill. Earthen Might seems kind of overpowered. Have I thought about using Thunderwolves? What do you think? What do you think? Have I thought about using Thunderwolves? Have I thought about using Thunderwolves, he says. I considered it. I considered it. It was a consideration. I considered it. Paste. You guys need to check out my new song. You guys need to check out my new song. I don't know. I don't know about switching between these two. I mean, guaranteed critical strike certainly sounds fun. Oh, I'm glad you guys like it. If you can do me a favor and share it, that would help me out a lot too. Trying to see if I can get as many views on that thing as possible. That song was a little expensive. It was a little on the expensive side, so I'd like to get a little bit of a return from it if I could. Even if it doesn't cover the cost of the song, I'd like to get at least a little bit of it back. And the more views it gets, the closer that will be. Basic skills generate more spirit. I'm actually kind of curious about that Slam Skunk. I don't know whether or not the like if I build lightning on my druid, is the Sensual getting my lightning damage bonuses and things like that? See, I'm not entirely sure about how that works, and so I don't know if that's actually going to be a thing or if they're just like completely separate from us entirely. They might be completely separate from us for all we know. And if that's the case, then I don't know. We're gonna have to find that kind of stuff out, aren't we? As soon as we get into the game, we're gonna be playing around with all that doojanks. All dem doojanks. They get 100% of our stats? I don't remember them ever saying that. I mean, Necromancer minions get 30% of our stats, so that's we know that for sure. I don't remember them ever saying 100%, or unless I missed it. Maybe I missed it. I'm not perfect. Maybe I missed it. You know what? What if we went with aspect of the natural balance, since we're going with Earth for our main, and then we got like And then I'm not really sure what to throw on the amulet. In the amulato slot. The amulato gelato slot. Of course, you can put like anything in this slot, can't you? I know what most of these are, and I'm still looking at them anyway. Oh, yeah. I'm an idiot. It's a channeling skill. Aspect of inner calm. It's a channeling skill. Duh. 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 I'm an idiot. Alright, and then for the spirit boons, it's probably going to look something like these. So, reduce damage from elites. That's always a nice one. Not really sure if critical strike chance or attack speed. We don't really need attack speed for channeling skills. So maybe it's going to be critical strike damage or critical strike chance, one or the other. I'm not sure. Probably critical strike damage here. Overload is most likely. I also want the one that extends the duration of ultimate skills. And probably double up on the snake for the calm before the storm. That way I can get even more duration out of Cataclysm. Try and go for like permanent uptime on Cataclysm with Lightning Storm. The reason why I'm thinking permanent uptime on Cataclysm is because I'm going to be channeling, and I kind of want that just like craziness going on around me in a circle, like as I'm standing still. So there's just even more craziness just like all over the place. Scale 1 to 1. I mean, if that's the case, then that's good. Then yeah, then in that case, I'd probably set up the Sensual to be lightning. Probably, there's a bunch of really nice ones in here for lightning. Like if that's the case, so I could definitely set up the Sensual for like maximum lightning damage. This one right here, the Tempest, which is electrically charged an enemy, causing it to deal damage to themselves and additional enemies each second over time. If the enemy is killed, the Tempest spreads to another enemy, gaining additional time and bonus damage. These bonuses are also applied if the Tempest is reapplied onto the same enemy. So I could go with Tempest, and I could go with Lightning Bolt. And then I could go with things like probably like multi-shot, piercing, and then there's another one in here, seeking, which causes the projectiles to seek targets. So like multi-shot, piercing, seeking for the lightning. And then for the Tempest, I was actually thinking I could go a different route, which would be something like electrocution. Where's that other one at? Registered damage, which is the one that like adds all the damage up and then it explodes on the target. That one could be kind of interesting to see how that works. And then I don't know if they have maybe just like some fortification or something like that, or barrier. I'm not really sure. It's not up here yet, so. And then the Paragon board. I mean, the Paragon board is going to be pretty simple. It's definitely going to be Thunderstruck, which I can go ahead and grab that, and then I was actually kind of thinking we might want to do the Heightened Malice. I'm not really sure. Like, I feel like the Heightened Malice is kind of like a big multiplier to just completely miss out on. And the Poison Creeper is a pretty powerful companion. I mean, I was originally thinking of just using the Poison Creeper only for the point of like the immobilizations, but then I realized, you know what? The Poison Creeper is actually a pretty powerful little boy. He's not a pushover, and having the Poison Creeper certainly wouldn't be a terrible thing. because you constantly poison everything, which would allow me to use the heightened malice, which is a pretty good one. I could maybe go into that more. Kind of have to pull some points from somewhere else, though. I kind of want to keep Bad Omen. That lucky hit on there is excellent. I'm not entirely sure where to pull points from, to be perfectly honest. I'm not entirely convinced the damage to elites is really all that amazing, because what classifies as an elite is actually not so straightforward. Like, for instance, I didn't realize that certain monsters in the game don't classify as elites. Let's just say this. The classification of elite is a lot more finite than it seems, and these are probably going to be better than this one. So then we can pull that, and we can come in here and grab the either the poison duration or the crit chance. I'm not really sure which one. What's the poison duration? It's 7 seconds, and then 2 seconds, and then that one adds an additional 3, so that's 5. Because that would give us the ability to spam, just spam poison on the targets, which would allow us to use heightened malice. Which a 45% times multiplier is actually pretty ridiculous. And you can snag heightened malice. I'm not really building the tree. I'm just kind of looking at the actual effects. And then from here, it's, I guess we could do constricting tendrils just so we have the additional immobilization chance. I mean, at the same time, though, I mean, heightened malice, I mean, that actually might take care of our poisoning right there. The constricting tendrils. So 1257. Let's go back and see if they got this patch notes live. That jank said cannot be found. Let's check the launcher. Sometimes they're on the launcher. So, you never know. A lot of the times the patch notes will just be floating around on the launcher. Before everything else. Unearth the looming threat of the construct. Season of the Blood, that's old. Deep dive. Let's try relaunching the launcher. Sometimes that helps too. Exit. Open it back up. I'm fairly confident we're going to get them at 1. So we got about 2 minutes until they pop up. Can also do a quick check on Twitter, because Adam and sometimes them like to post them early on Twitter. Nothing yet. It is copyrighted, basically. I mean, it's through a different person. He has the copyrights to it. I paid for it, so I'm kind of like the producer slash owner, and he's the ermg. Yeah, they're definitely updating the page because when I try and reload the page, yep, here we go. All right, boys, let's go. Patch 1.30, number 48780, all platforms, January 24th, 2024. It's important to us when a player chooses to fully invest in a skill. The payoff is immense. In pursuit of this goal, several of our new unique and legendary items are targeting skills that have yet to reach their full potential. We're excited to see what players accomplish with our new unique items for Barbarian's Rend, Druid's Lightning Storm, Sorceress's Meteor. We're also targeting some pressing issues for each class. Necromancers with Cult Leaders should see their minions strike a bit harder. Barbarians shouldn't feel that the 3 shouts are a requirement for their success. And the Sorceresses apply Vulnerable with Lightning Spear should open new build opportunities. There are also class updates to items and skills that are underperforming, such as the Rogue's ranged unique items and the Necromancer's Golem. All new classes, new items. Pain Gorger's Gauntlets Unique Gloves. Damaging enemies with a non-basic skill marks them for 3 seconds. When a basic skill first hits a marked enemy, the basic skill's damage is echoed to all marked enemies, dealing 100 to 200% increased damage. What? Holy Jesus, that sounds fun. So basically, if you hit a bunch of monsters with your non-basic skill, and then you slap a monster with your basic skill, all the monsters that are marked get hit by the basic skill. So the goal here would be to have like a really big AoE attack, I would assume, smash down, like hit everything, and then just start wailing away with the basic skill to hit everything within that area. That sounds absolutely insane. Pain Gorger's Gauntlets. Of course, basic skills aren't really the highest damage skills, but this would be interesting for a basic skill character, because if you focus on basic skill damage, this could definitely be... aspect of adaptability. Utility. When cast below 50% maximum resource, basic skills generate 3 of your primary resource once per cast. When cast at or above 50% maximum resource, basic skills deal 40 to 80% increased damage. So that's another basic character item. These are both basic character items. Juggernaut's aspect, gain 0.75 to 1.25 armor, but your evade has a 100% increased cooldown. So a little bit of kiss curse action going on there. Giving you something and then taking something away. Item updates. Ring of the Starless Skies. The unique power has been changed. Previous casting a core skill reduces resource cost of your core skills by 12%, up to a maximum of 40. Resets upon using a non-core skill. New, spending resources reduces your resource cost and increases your damage by 10% for 3 seconds, up to 40%. That was pretty much sorely needed. Ring of the Starless Skies wasn't really performing properly. I mean, it worked, but it wasn't performing properly. So it looks like it's actually going to perform properly now. So that's nice. Offensive aspect of the Expectant. Damage bonus has a 5-second duration to be used. I actually made this complaint about it in my video. Sounds like they've been watching my video. The duration of the effect is just too short, and you really couldn't get much actual use out of it, which was unfortunate. Melted Heart of Saleg. All stats increased to 2 times normal value. Core stat damage changed to movement speed. Damage while healthy increased to 3 times normal value. Unique power has been changed. Previous, gain 30 maximum resource, and in addition, when you take damage, drain 3 resources for every 1% of the life you would have lost instead. New, gains 60 maximum resource. Holy crap. 75% of incoming damage drains 2 resource for every 1% of... I see what they did there. So what they did there was they converted it into a percentage of your life instead of all damage. So now it's no longer a energy shield, or rather, it's no longer an immortal energy shield. Now it's like a low-level energy shield that only consumes 75% of the damage that you take, which means that if you get hit hard enough, you'll still die. And also your health will drain constantly, even if your resource stays at full. So how it worked before is if you could maintain your maximum resource indefinitely, then your health would never go down. But how it is now is if you get hit for like the entirety of your HP pool, you still take 25% of that, which isn't that bad. Had 75% of that goes to your resource, but if you get hit 4 times like that, you're dead, right? So you're still going to have to heal yourself now with it. It's still going to be really good. It's just not going to be broken like it was before, which probably needed to happen. And don't you guys ever forget that Max Roll ranked Melted Heart of Saleg as an F rank item, by the way. F rank. This item that's so overpowered that they literally had to nerf it down to a less overpowered state, and it's still probably going to be overpowered in this state, by the way. They ranked that item as F rank. Overpower attacks now gain a plus 1% damage down from 2 per 1% of your base life you have in Fortify. That's basically a 50% nerf. Overpower attacks now gain 1% damage down from 2% of your base life you have in bonus life above your base life. So yeah, they pretty much just halved overpower. That's literally a halving of overpower right there. So if you were getting, I don't know, like say, let's just pretend you were getting 1 million damage before, you're probably going to be looking at about 500,000 damage now. Barbarian new item, Ring of Ravenous. Oh, and you know what? Let's touch on this for a second. This was deserved, okay? Overpower was unfortunately and rather ironically overpowered. And I think everybody could see that overpower needed to be dialed back a little bit. The fact that they waited till Season 3 is only due to the fact that they really wanted people to use overpower. And they were excited that everybody was actually using it for a change. So they didn't immediately nerf it, but they knew they had to eventually. Ring of the Ravenous. So this is a new unique item for the Barbarian. Ren's duration is increased by 2 to 4 seconds. Damaging enemies with brawling skills applies 2 stacks of Ren's bleed. This effect can only occur once every 4 seconds per enemy. So increases the duration of the bleed and also makes it so that brawling skills can stack the bleed on the target. 2 stacks of the Ren's bleed, actually. There's a lot of fun brawling skills you could potentially use. I would definitely say, like, Kick would probably be a really fun one. Although I think they probably have Charge in mind, because they do have Charge on the buff wheel this season. The buff wheel. Aspect of the Sundered Ground offensive. Every 25 seconds, upheaval is guaranteed to overpower and deals 10 to 20% increased damage. This timer is reduced by 4 seconds when upheaval overpowers a boss or elite enemy. Skills Charge. They talked about beefing the crap out of Charge, so they're going to be beefing this up like crazy. Base damage was increased by 900% from 0.025 to 2.50. That's a pretty massive increase. And this is a good change, by the way. I want everyone to remember this because this is an example of a good itemization. So putting all the special effects onto a unique is not necessarily the best idea because it pigeonholes everyone into using that unique item. And Charge is the biggest example of this. There was a lot of aspects. There was a lot of things that it could increase Charge's power, but that you had to have like a full accoutrement of like rings, amulets, like eyebrow makeup, like a nose ring, like gloves, boots, pants. Like if you put all that on, Charge would actually be viable. But the thing is that once you put all that on, you were missing everything else that you could have put on in the place of that stuff. And so what they've done is they're moving a lot of that crap from the items to the actual skill, instead of forcing you to wear 18 pieces of equipment to make a skill viable, which I know is an exaggeration. They're trying to make it more along the lines of that the skill is viable before you put the items on. They also base damage. So the base damage multiplier. So this is like the little multiplier. It's 0.25. So they went from 0.25 to 2.50. So yeah, that's a 900% increase. Enhanced charge terrain impact damage increased by 150%. From 0.6 to 1.5. Power charge no longer requires a terrain impact to reduce the cooldown of charge, and now charging a boss will reduce the cooldown by 6 seconds. They also added an aspect last season for charge that was actually really good. It's one that basically makes it so that there's like a bunch of like ancients that spawn, and then they also charge. So instead of just you charging, it's like imagine a football like defensive line. That's basically what it looks like. The football defensive line charges in that direction toward the enemy, and it's freaking amazing. So with the changes to this and that aspect from last season, with the football defensive line charge, probably going to be a go-to skill this season. Leap base damage increased by 30%. Leap is really more of a utility skill, but I guess it's nice it gets a damage bump. Passives, brute force, overpower damage decreased from 15% to 8%, so another overpower nerf there. Walking arsenal, duration of each weapon bonus increased from 8 to 10 seconds. They talked about basically during the live stream that nobody was using walking arsenal because everybody was using the unconstrained, I believe, which was the one with the berserking, and that they felt like the berserking damage was a little too high. And they wanted people to use some of the other ones. So they're kind of like going through the process of readjusting some of the legendary passives, the key passives. And this is Walking Arsenal is one of the key passives, Unconstrained and Gushing Wounds. They basically are doing all of them, which is pretty hilarious. So they're basically nerfing Unconstrained, as you can see here. Berserking damage bonus. Well, actually, no, they didn't nerf it, did they? It's increased from 60 to 100%, not decreased. I bet you they probably nerfed it somewhere else. Walking Arsenal, duration of each weapon bonus increased from 8 to 10 seconds. Additional damage from having all bonuses increased from 15 to 20%. Having all bonuses now also increases attack speed by 20%, so they really want people to use our Walking Arsenal. That Unconstrained surprisingly got a buff. I actually didn't expect that. That's a 40% berserking damage bonus. Gushing Wounds bonus bleed amount increased from 115 to 140%. Overpower explosion damage increased from 70 to 85%. The overpower nerf is going to hit Gushing Wounds kind of hard. I don't really know how to even talk about Gushing Wounds. I feel like Gushing Wounds is such a weird key passive because it's based around crit and it's based around crit damage, but bleeds are not based around crit damage. And so you end up stacking something that doesn't necessarily affect the skill that you're actually using, which is really strange. And the Gushing Wounds ability just doesn't really, every time I use it, it just doesn't really work out as well as I think it's going to work. Weapon expertise leveling has been cut by 50%. I mean, ever since they added the training dummy, you can pretty much just walk into Kyovashad, go to the training dummy, and level up all your stuff to level the highest level, max level, like that. I mean, you basically just put something on your mouse, like a big wedge of cheese or something, and walk away and come back, and you've got level 10. It's not really that big of a deal. If you guys haven't figured that out, well, now you know. Go to Kyovashad, go to the training dummy, pull out whatever weapon you want, assign a skill, and just have it hold down the button with a basic skill and just walk away and come back to your level 10 skill. It's super easy. Paragon Martial Glyph now reduces the cooldown of every non-shout skill by 4 seconds instead of every other shout by 1.2 seconds. Wow, they just straight up isolated the shouts. They're like, yeah, well, you guys don't want to use the shouts anymore? Well, now everything else gets the buff and the shouts don't. Item updates, resource aspect of Echoing of Fury. You now generate 6 to 10 Fury per second while any shout is active instead of 2 to 4 per second for each shout active. So basically, they set it up so that you only need one shout. That's interesting. I'm assuming it doesn't stack either, because if it's stacked, that would be like 30 Fury per second, whereas this one is 4 times 3, which is 12. So they're giving you 10 for 1 instead of 12 for 3. So you're going to lose 2, but you're going to gain 2 skill slots in the process, which is kind of nice. And you can choose between the shouts there. Offensive aspect of Limitless Rage. Damage bonus now has a 5-second duration to be used. Also, I was actually just thinking, because it's if any is active, that also means that if you do happen to use more than one shout, it'll be active all the time. Because, that way you could have 2 of them and you could like keep them up constantly, right? Just alternate back and forth to make sure one is always active. Veteran Brawler's offensive aspects, reduce bonus damage per stack from 15 to 20 to 6 to 8%, up to a reduced maximum bonus of 225 to 300% to 30 to 40%. It seems like a nerf, but then at the same time, it's not really that much of a nerf. I'm having trouble. Okay, hold on. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know that's actually a pretty big nerf. I'm looking at it wrong. So yeah, that goes from 20 to 8. So that's a 12% difference. And then the maximum bonus is going from 300% to 40%. Yeah, they kind of gutted this ability, didn't they? Because now 300 to 40. Wow. I don't even remember exactly what this one is, but it definitely seems like they gutted it. Each time a core skill deals direct damage to an enemy, your next charge or leap. Okay, charge or leap. I see. So this is specifically due to the fact that they beefed the ever-loving crap out of charge, and so that they didn't want this aspect also giving charge a huge bonus. So they took the bonus damage from this aspect and they put it on the skill directly, so you don't actually have to use this aspect. Honestly, if that was the case, they should have just deleted this aspect from the game instead of nerfing it completely. It doesn't seem like a good idea to leave it in if they're going to transfer the power from this aspect to the skill, because now why would you even want to use this aspect at this point if all the power is gone from it? Offensive aspect of Ancestral Charge, also they reduced the damage bonus there. Again, transferred it. Offensive aspect of Encroaching Wrath, reduced bonus weapon mastery from 82 to 100% to 40 to 60. Damage bonus now has a 5-second duration to be used. Ring of Red Furor, damage bonus now has a 5-second duration to be used. Druid. Moving on to the Druid. So this is the new unique item, the Unsung Aesthetic Wraps. The Lightning Storm gains 1 additional strike each time it grows. Lightning Storm critical strike cause lightning damage to strike twice, dealing 10 to 20% increased damage. This one should be pretty fun. It's basically just going to make it so that we have like massive amounts of lightning on the screen at any given time. It's actually kind of crazy, to be honest, because it's going to it's going to be like really ridiculous in the amount of lightning bolts that are currently on the screen. Just massive amounts of lightning bolts. It might actually be so silly that you might not actually be able to see anything on the screen, because if you do it properly and you set it up with other things, it's just going to look like some sort of movie where like the lightning is coming down like way too fast and it's not even like realistic, but that's what it's going to look like. Virulent Aspect Utility. When rabies infects an enemy, reduce its cooldown by 0.3 to 0.6 seconds. This cooldown reduction is tripled when infecting elites. I don't know what it is about rabies, but no matter what they do to rabies, it never really works properly. I'm willing to give it another chance this season. I think I've gave it a chance every single season, and it just never feels like it does enough damage. Never really feels like it's all that amazing. And it also mostly just feels like it's a waste of skill points. So hopefully the changes that they're making to rabies will actually help it. And right here, enhanced rabies, maximum damage bonus increased from 30 to 60. Lacerate cooldown reduced from 45 to 35 seconds. Prime Lacerate changed functionality. Lacerate hits for 3% maximum life, increased to 6% on critical strikes. Lacerate is another one of those abilities that just, I don't know exactly why. I just never really like using it. It kind of feels like the like 5-sided or 7-sided palm or whatever from Diablo 3 with the monk, but it feels inferior to it for some reason. Cataclysm twister damage increased from 23 to 6%. Lightning damage increased from 77 to 95%. So another beef to the lightning druid. Vulnerable duration increased from 3 to 6 seconds. Supreme Cataclysm. Passives, mending additional healing received increased from 5 to 6% per rank. Thick Hide, Fortify increased from 6.4 to 10% per rank. Unrestrained, control impairing effects, duration reduction increased from 3% to 5% per rank. Increased benefit while over 50% Fortify reduced from tripled to doubled. So a buff and then a nerf. Natural Fortitude, Fortify gained on shapeshifting increased from 1.4 to 2% per rank. That's kind of nice. Bestial Rampage, required shapeshift duration reduced from 2.5 seconds to 2. Attack speed bonus increased from 25% to 30. Thorns increased from 0.15 to 0.6. From 1,194 to 4,776. Well, Thorns Druid coming in hot with a 4,776 Thorns. Combine that with a nice unique armor and maybe some other Thorns equipment, and who knows, you might actually have a Thorns Druid. Gift of the Stag, maximum spirit increased from 10 to 20. Avian Wrath, critical strike damage bonus is now multiplicative instead of additive. Okay, that's pretty powerful. Even though they capped out the multiplicative bonuses for critical strike damage. So I guess technically, even if they did change it to multiplicative, if you've already hit the multiplicative critical strike damage cap, it then becomes additive again. So it's either going to be multiplicative if you don't have enough crit, but then will turn back into an additive if you've hit the multiplicative additive crit cap. It sounds kind of confusing, but it's not. It basically just means that it's really only useful if you're low on critical strike damage multipliers, and if you're high on critical strike damage multipliers, it will be an additive and less useful. Paragon Tectonic, bonus lucky hit chance increased from 15 to 20%. Poise barrier increased from 5% of maximum health to 15%. That's actually a pretty big, it's a triple bonus. Duration increased from 4 to 6%. Wilds, passive companion bonus damage increased from 80 to 120%. Item updates, aspect of the blurred beast. Previous, while dashing, Shred seeks out nearby poisoned enemies, instantly dealing 70 to 100% poison damage to them. New, while dashing, Shred seeks out nearby poisoned enemies and deals 20 to 40% times increased damage to them. Yeah, they pretty much eliminated that double damage exploit. For those of you who are unaware of basically what was happening, is the aspect of the blurred beast was essentially applying the damage twice to the target, so you would end up with the poison damage, and then you would end up with the damage itself, and then like your multipliers were getting applied twice instead of once, and so the damage was like ballooning out of control. And in combination with some snapshots and some other things, which hopefully they eventually fix the snapshotting problem, people were able to get like 1 trillion damage. I'm not even joking, not 1 billion, 1 trillion. I saw a 1 trillion hit, and yeah, they nipped that in the bud real quick. The aspect of the blurred beast now looks like it's no longer going to give that double damage bonus at all. Instead, it's just going to give you a multiplier on your existing damage, instead of letting you, somehow apply your damage 2 times. Aspect of Metaphoric Stone, boulder cost reduced from 50 to 40 for those boulder druids. That's a nice win. Aspect of the Unsated, Spirit Generation bonus damage increased from 20 to 30% to 30 to 40. Aspect of Retaliation, bonus damage reduced from 20 to 40 to 20 to 30. Necromancer, new unique item. Okay. The Mutilator Plate. That's right, the Mutilator. You are Bloodlanced, and when Bloodlance would deal damage to you, it instead fortifies you for 1 to 2% of your maximum life, and has a 5% chance to form a Blood Orb. Blood Lance deals 10 to 20% increased damage. Wow, you are Blood Lanced. Well, that's interesting. So it just basically gives you a whole nother Bloodlance target yourself. I mean, once you've Bloodlanced everybody, why not Bloodlance yourself too? Because, I mean, yes, that actually sounds amazing. I'm not gonna lie. Sounds like a really funny, a really funny, unique item. And the fact that it fortifies you and then also gives you a Blood Orb, could be very interesting. Basically, free Blood Orbs constantly as the Blood Lance is pulsing inside of your chest. You just walk up into battle and you just got a blood lance sticking out of your chest, and just like the druid looks over at you and he's like, "You gonna be all right, Necromancer?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, it's fine." He goes, "This is it's normal." He goes, "This is my friend, Mr. Bloodlance. He's just living in my heart. Don't worry about him." And everybody just kind of looks away, rolls their eyes. Like freaking necromancers, God, they have raising the dead, blood lances in their chest, golems everywhere. Shattered Spirits Aspect, that's a new one too. Casting Bone Spirit also launches 18 bone splinters in all directions, dealing 200 to 400% increased damage and generating 6 essence per enemy hit. I like it. I get a big, it's like an explosion, right? So it'd be like a whole bunch of bone splinters just like all over the screen. Dude, that sounds really cool. I think we might be making a Bone Spirit Necromancer this season. We made one last season too, but I can't really say he was like a rip roaring success. I really want to give him another try and see if I can figure him out a little bit better. My main issue with him is just that he doesn't really quite fulfill the fantasy that I had in my mind. This, however, might just fulfill my fantasy. I mean, who doesn't like shooting a whole bunch of bone splinters all over the screen? Come on. I get teeth and bone spirit at the same time. Skills, Iron Maiden, damage increased from 0.2 to 0.3. Horrid Iron Maiden, bonus damage increased from 20 to 30%. Corpse Explosion, lucky hit chance reduced from 40% to 25%. Okay. Base damage increased from 50 to 70. Oh, that's kind of nice. Blighted Corpse Explosion, damage decreased from 110 to 95%. I actually had considered with the Bone Spirit working in Corpse Explosion. So it looks like Corpse Explosion got a buff in damage but lowered the lucky hit chance. That's unfortunate. Especially considering I think what I was trying to do was actually built around the lucky hit chance. So that's a little sad. There's an aspect that you can use that basically makes it so that you have like a lucky hit chance to spawn blood orbs every single time you corpse explode, and then well, actually no, you can't. Well, no, that's an armor. That's not bloodlance. So if you use the armor that gives you free blood bone spirits when you when you collect blood orbs, you can basically get like free bone spirits without having to spend any essence. And then you use Corpse Explosion to consume the corpses, which generates the blood orbs, and then you pick up the blood orbs and you get all these free bone spirits firing all over the place. It actually works out quite nicely, but this might put a hamper in that. So I guess we'll have to take a look. Blight damage over time increased by 15%. Sever initial damage increased from 66 to 75%. Sever return damage increased from 21 to 25%. Bone Spirit damage is increased by 4% per essence spent casting Bone Spirit, up from 3, so pretty big damage bump for Bone Spirit. That's actually pretty huge. just to give you guys an idea, you can potentially get like, I mean, it's a little rough, but you can potentially get around like 300 maximum essence, especially with that new Melted Heart of Saleg, if you got that, your hands on that. And then that's times 4%, so that gives you a 1200% damage bonus to the damage of Bone Spirit. And then on top of that, you also have Ossified Essence, which gives you a bonus when casted above 50 maximum essence. So Ossified Essence is what, like 0.5, I think, above 50. So that would be like 250 times 0.5, which is another 125 added into that. And it does get kind of insane with Bone Spirit. Bone Spirit hits really hard. My main complaint about the way that they have Bone Spirit set up is you can't really cast it very often. You kind of have to build essence and then fire, build essence and then fire, which does make it a little bit more difficult and clunky. But when it does hit a target, man, it makes you feel really good because, man, when it hits the target, it's just like a nuclear bomb, and it's AOE damage too. So if you have them all nice and clustered up with corpse tendrils, when you fire off the Bone Spirit, it hits that pack of monsters, and it's just like boom, and all the monsters fall down, and you giggle a little bit. But in between that giggling, there is a bit of a clunkiness that is a little annoying. And we'll have to see how this works. This right here could potentially fix it because it generates 6 essence per enemy hit. So you'd have the Bone Spinners coming out generating essence, which could potentially restore all the essence you need to fire another Bone Spirit, right? So we'll see. Dreadful Bone Spirit now restores 30% of your maximum essence instead of a flat 30. That actually is a pretty big boon too, because if you build... let's break out the calculator again. If you build like 300 as like the maximum that you possibly can, and you add 30% to that, well, that's 90 maximum essence. So as you can see here, in a situation where you're building maximum essence, which you would for Bone Spirit, having a percentage-based increase in maximum essence is going to be far better than a flat amount. Which is going to help you out a lot more. The only problem here is that early on in the game, if you do a Bone Spirit Necromancer and you only have like the base 100, well, 30% of base 100 is still 30, right? So you're still getting at least the base that's here. You're just not going to get like the 90 or whatever that you would get otherwise. So at least this way, they're not really nerfing it at all, and it's a considerable increase in the amount of returned essence for the Bone Spirit Necromancers. Acolytes Decompose. Previous, you and your minions deal 10% increased damage to enemies being decomposed. New, every 1.5 seconds, Decompose makes enemies vulnerable. Okay, so a little bit of vulnerability on Decompose. For 4 seconds, too, that's a pretty good amount. Decompose is a channeling skill, though. It is a little bit difficult to use. I do actually really like the pros of Decompose. But the main problem with Decompose is that it's a channeling ability, and it's very difficult to properly use. I kind of wish that they would just convert Decompose into a like an actual, just fire it and just move it on. Because like if you fire like a burst of Decompose energy at the enemy, I think it would be a little bit more useful than the channeling, which plants you. And the real problem with the channeling abilities is just that plant. The plant is terrible. Because when you can't move, there's so many things in the game that can kill you, and you constantly have to move to avoid them. So whenever you stop moving, a lot of the times it just means death. Initiates Decompose. Previous Decompose slows enemies by 50%. New Decompose slows enemies by 50%. And if you channel Decompose for at least 1.5 seconds, you gain a 30% movement speed for 5 seconds after ending the channel. That goes a long way to helping, because, gives you a little bit of a boost to get out of the way of something that might be coming your way. Dreadful Blood Mist. Previous Blood Mist fortifies you for 0.5% of your maximum life each time it hits an enemy. New, you gain 10% critical strike chance for 4 seconds after Blood Mist ends. So Blood Mist no longer fortifies you. Bone Prison. Friendly players and minions can now freely pass through Bone Prison walls. This is a really nice change, although sad for those of us who like to troll our friends by bone prisoning them in. The functionality of Enhanced Bone Prison and Ghastly Bone Prison have been swapped. I think those are two Yeah. They basically just swapped them around a little bit so you could choose between them. Um, one of them was the so you got bone prison, and then you got your first one, and then you got your two. So they basically just swapped around two of them. So the it's just going to be easier, I guess, to get access to what you want, and then the other two will be a choice. Enhanced bone prison. Enemies inside of bone prison are now vulnerable. That's really nice. Ghastly bone prison. If enemies are trapped by bone prison, gain 25 essence plus an additional 5 per enemy trapped. So they, like I said, they just swapped these two around. Dreadful bone prison. Previous, fortify you for 8% of your maximum life for each enemy trapped by bone prison. New, reduce your active cooldowns by 0.5 seconds for each enemy trapped by bone prison up to 3 seconds. I'm not sure what they're doing here. Why are they taking away all the Necromancer's Fortify options? They just took away the Necromancer's Fortify option here. They took away the Necromancer's Fortify option here. They just taken all the Necromancer's Fortify options away. It's kind of weird. Not really sure why you would do that. Why would you? Why take the Necromancer already has limited Fortify options in the first place. Bone Prison and it yeah. I guess. Ossified Essence now displays the current bonus on the tooltip. Book of the Dead, Golem. When golems finish casting their active ability, they will first try to target a new close enemy before reverting to their previous target. When Blood Golem and Iron Golem, basic attacks now hit enemies in an area around the main target. Bone Golem, active ability now grants the Golem Thorns, equal to 70% of your armor for the duration of the taunt. Bone Mage, upgrade now fortifies based on your maximum life instead of base life. So they took away Bone Prison Fortify. They took away Blood Mist Fortify. And then they gave the Bone Mage Fortify a buff. I guess they're trying to move people toward the Bone Mages, but the Bone Mages suck because they kill themselves and they need constant micromanaging. I've tried to use the Bone Mages. Let me tell you, it's not fun having to constantly resurrect them because they kill themselves on a regular basis. Not in love with that. Skeleton Priest, healing increased from 25% to 40% over the 8-second duration. Make it a static heal. Like, why does it need to be a duration heal? Just make it a static heal. The duration heal is useless. It doesn't really work very well. Paragon, Cult Leader, Legendary Paragon Node. Your minions deal 15% times increased damage for each minion type you have active. New, your minions deal 10 times increased damage for each 20% of attack speed bonus they have. Well, seeing as how there's a couple items in the game that give like almost like 200% attack speed to the minions, like the one when you're using the Book of the Dead, or the Army of the Dead skill, and then there's another one which is like for each second that they're alive, they get attack speed. I would imagine that would be what, like 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. It's like, so about 100% times increase if you get it all set up. So about 100% times increase, I would assume, because there's a lot of attack speed that you can give to your minions, and they also inherit 30% of your attack speed. So if you build up your attack speed, you could probably push that more into the, say, 150% range. It really kind of depends. That's pretty powerful, especially considering how many attack speed bonuses the minions have. Golem additional bonus changed from 25% to 25%, 25% health to 25% damage. Item updates. Aspect of the Swelling Curse. Previous Bone Spirit increased the damage based on the distance traveled, which sucked. New Bone Spirit's critical strike chance is increased by 15 to 25%, and your maximum essence is increased by 2 for each enemy hit for 15 seconds. Notice they actually put a decent timer on that. You know why? Because you can't spam Bone Spirit. When you use Bone Spirit, it consumes all your essence, and you have to regenerate all your essence. So if you can't regenerate all your essence in 15 seconds to fire the next Bone Spirit, then this is unfortunately useless. It will be interesting to see how well this works. But essentially, if there's no cap on this, imagine you hit, say, like, for instance, I don't know, like 30 monsters. Like, let's just pretend your Bone Spirit hit 30 monsters, which isn't unreasonable, but if your Bone Spirit hit 30 monsters, they're probably all dead. But that's, of course, times 2, so you're going to get 60 maximum essence increase, which, because of the 4% per that they changed Bone Spirit to, you're talking about a 240% multiplier. Not including what ossified essence gives you per point of maximum essence, and not including the passives either, because there are passives that also give you some bonuses based on your essence. But as you can see here, something like this would actually be a considerable bonus to the damage output of your next Bone Spirit. But it would have to hit a rather large number of monsters to make this happen. Torturous aspect. Previous enemies afflicted by your Iron Maiden have a 15 to 25% chance to be stunned for 1 second when they deal direct damage. New Iron Maiden is now also a darkness skill and deals shadow damage. Enemies afflicted by your Iron Maiden have a 15 to 25% chance to be stunned for 1 second when they deal direct damage. Another one of these is now a darkness skill. Routing aspect, chance to spawn additional corpses increased from 30 to 60 to 50 to 100%. A rotting aspect. What is the rotting aspect? Is that one that, Rotting aspect. That is the decompose can chain up to 2 additional targets. When decompose spawns a corpse, it has a 30 to 60% chance to spawn a corpse under all afflicted targets. Well, that's a pretty big buff for decompose, because that means you get a 100% chance to spawn a corpse under every target. And so you get, what, like 3 corpses guaranteed, plus whatever corpses the skill itself makes. So anywhere between like 3 to 5 corpses. It could be a very effective boss corpse generator as well. Hulking aspect, chance to reduce golem active cooldown increase from 2 to 5 to 4 to 10. Nobody uses this aspect. Chance to spawn a corpse increased from 1 to 2.5 to 2 to 5%. I think this is probably like the least used aspect in the game. It's such a finite and specific aspect that only affects the golem. And taking up an aspect slot for this, I just don't really feel like is ever going to be worth it. And the percentages that they had before were terrible. Granted, the percentages that they have now are better, but still terrible. Rogue, new item, Beast Fall Boots. When you cast an ultimate skill, your next core skill consumes all of your energy and deals 0.5 to 1.5% increased damage per energy consumed. Using a cooldown restores 5 energy. It consumes all of your energy, 1.5% increased energy. So this is very similar to the Necromancer stuff. So assuming you have 100, which is your base, you're looking at times 1.5, so you get 150%. If you can bring that up to 200, which I'm not really sure what options the Rogue has for bringing up their resource, but that's 200 times 1.5 is going to give you about a 300%. It doesn't say it's a multiplier here, though, but I would assume it's a multiplier. And then using cooldowns restore 5 energy per. It's interesting. Interesting. I wonder if you could combine that. Doesn't the Rogue have like an ability that basically makes all her skills free for a certain period of time? And they don't consume any essence, like the precision. I think it's the precision key passive or whatever, or the precision technique. Maybe you could combine this with the precision technique, basically making it so that you have like an infinite amount of energy for a certain period of time and gain this bonus. I don't know. Resistant assailant aspect defensive. Breaking concealment grants a 10% resistance and maximum resist to all elements for 4 seconds. Killing an elite enemy reduces concealment cooldown by 6 to 10 seconds. So you get, that's a pretty hefty amount of maximum resistance. So 10% to all elements for 4 seconds for breaking concealment. Depending on how many concealment abilities you're using, that could basically be permanent. Skills, Blade Shift, damage increased from 16 to 20%, duration increased from 3 to 4. Fundamental Invigorating Strike, vulnerable now applies while you are below 85% energy, up from 75% energy. Enhanced Caltrops, previous, enemies take 5% increased damage from you each second they are standing in the Caltrops. New, enemies in Caltrops take 10% times increased damage from you, increased from 5% each second. So, is it still each second? Because it doesn't say each second. Well, if it's each second that they're standing in it, I mean, that's pretty hefty. I mean, it could add up, like, I can't remember the exact duration of Caltrops. Is it like 5 seconds? So it could add up to 50% times, depending on how long they're standing in it. Rain of Arrows, cast time reduced by 15%. Oh, they finally addressed the Rain of Arrows ridiculous delay, where it's just like... And I died so many times because she takes like 10 years to fire those arrows. I mean, granted, she's firing 18,000 arrows, but come on. The first wave of arrows now hits closer to the player. Cold Imbuement, chill amount now increases 5% per skill rank, up from 2.5. Blended Cold Imbuement, remove the critical strike requirement and increase the lucky hit chance from 20 to 35%. Mixed Poison Imbuements, lucky hits. Poison imbued skills have a 30% chance to apply double the amount of poison damage. New lucky hit poison imbued skills have a 30% chance to reduce poison imbuement's cooldown by 2 seconds. So they nerfed poison imbuements. I mean, reducing the cooldown means you can have it up more often, which does mean that you can continue to poison targets more. But reducing the double poison damage, I mean, that's a pretty hefty nerf to the poison skill. I actually relied on the poison skill a lot on the ranged characters to pull me through a lot of the combat. That's unfortunate. Forceful Arrow, vulnerable duration increased from 3 to 5. Enhanced Penetrating Shot. Previous Penetrating Shot deals 10% times increased damage per enemy it pierces. Now Penetrating Shot has a 10% additive critical strike chance. Okay. If Penetrating Shot damages at least 3 enemies, gain plus 10% critical strike chance for 5 seconds. Why would they take away the damage of Penetrating Shot? I mean, the critical strike chance is nice, don't get me wrong, but as I've discussed in previous videos, it's really easy to get critical strike chance. It's not as easy to get multipliers. And I don't really think that the critical strike chance was even needed here. Unless they beefed up the damage somewhere else. They were talking about making it better. Previous, if penetrating shot damages at least 3 enemies, your next penetrating shot has a 20% increased critical strike chance. And they moved it. So, okay, so they moved it here. Penetrating shot deals an additional 10% increased damage per enemy it hits. So why would they just... That doesn't even make any sense. They swapped them around? So they took the enhanced penetrating shot and swapped it over to improved penetrating shot, and took the improved penetrating shot and swapped it over to the enhanced penetrating shot. And it doesn't really look like it's the same. I mean, it was 20% critical strike chance here, and it's only 10% here. So they took away 10% critical strike chance, and then they put it on a timer. I'm confused, dude. I guess maybe they did it to make it more accessible, but then they also nerfed it at the same time. I don't know. Close quarter. I like penetrating shot. I'm kind of upset. Close quarters combat. Amount of damage versus crowd control bonus conversion percent reduced from 40 to 10%. Attack speed per stack increased from 10 to 15%. Precision. They talked about changing precision around. Previous critical strike with marksman skills grants you precision. You gain 4% times critical strike damage per stack of precision, up to a maximum of 20% times. When you reach maximum precision, your next marksman skill is guaranteed to critically strike and deals 40% times increased critical strike damage, and then consumes all stacks of precision. The new version. Each marksman skill grants 1 stack of precision, or 2 if it has critically struck. When you reach 6 stacks, your next marksman core or ultimate skill is a guaranteed critical strike that deals 50% times increased critical strike damage, consuming all stacks of precision. This damage is further increased by an amount equal to times 15% of your critical strike bonus. Okay, so they added a stacking multiplier depending on your critical strike bonus here, which basically means that the amount of damage that it gives you is going to be directly proportional to how high you stack your critical strike additive bonus. Chilling weight. Previous chilled enemies have their movement speed further reduced by 10, 20, 30. New chilled enemies have their movement speed further reduced by 10, 20, 30, and you gain 5, 10, 15% increased chill effect. Concussive. I actually have no idea how that actually works. Like, how do you increase the chill effect by a percentage? I mean, it only goes up to 100%, and then once it gets 100%, they're frozen. Concussive. Previous. After knocking back or knocking down an enemy, you gain 4% increased critical strike chance against them for 4 seconds. New. After knocking back or knocking down an enemy, you gain 4% increased critical strike chance for 4 seconds. What? Against what? Did they change anything? Oh, okay. I see what they changed. So it was originally only against the target that you knocked back or knocked down. Now it is against all targets. So the wording change there is a little strange, but it basically they just took away against them. And what that means is that it'll just give you 4% increased critical strike chance for 4 seconds on all of your abilities against anything, which is a pretty big buff to the concussive passive. Paragon Lariana's Instinct. Previous, when inner sight, inner gauge becomes full, you gain 100% dodge chance for 1.5 seconds. New, when inner sight's gauge becomes full, you gain 100% dodge chance for 2 seconds. Your next 3 core skills deal an additional damage equal to 20% times of your core skill damage bonus. Another multiplier added on. So this is another one of those scaling multipliers that you can stack, and the more core damage that you can stack, the more multiplier you can get. They're tying them. So they tied core skill damage to inner sight, and they tied critical strike damage bonus to precision. Item update, Blade Dancer's aspect. The orbiting blades can now hit each enemy 2 times, reduced from 3. This change was made to properly match the visuals of 2 rotations around the player. Previous, twisting blades orbits for a short time after they return to you, dealing 10 to 15% twisting blades return damage per hit. Based on the distance of the blades returning, the orbit damage increases up to 20 to 30% of the return damage. New twisting blades orbit for a short time, and after they return to you, deal 20 to 30% of twisting blades return damage per hit. Trying to see exactly what they did here. So they took away the 10 to 15% return damage per hit based on the distance returning. So that's gone. However, they kept the 20 to 30% return damage. I'm trying to figure out exactly like the specifics though, because it doesn't just seem like they took away the 10 to 15% return damage per hit. They didn't just take this away. And they didn't just take away the based on the distance. It basically says dealing 20 to 30% of twisting blades return damage per hit. So it no longer increases. It no longer gets the distance bonus. Sounds like a really severe Twisting Blades nerf. Like, I'm just trying to soak it all in, but it doesn't sound like Twisting Blades is going to hit very hard at all anymore. I mean, granted, every single season it feels like people are just twisting blades, twisting blades, twisting blades. And I guess what they're trying to do is move people away from twisting blades. So, I mean, there's no surprise here. Aspect of Stolen Vigor. Previous, each stack of Momentum Key passive heals you for 0.4 to 0.8 life per second. New, each stack of Momentum Key passive heals you for 0.4 to 0.0 life per second and grants you 5% damage reduction. Oh, nice. Icy Alchemist. Oh, I love Icy Alchemist. That's one of my favorite aspects. What did they do to my baby? They better not mess up my baby. Lucky hit, damaging. So basically how this works, I don't even need to read it. When an enemy is chilled or frozen and you hit them with a Shadow Imbued ability, it has a 75% chance to release an explosion. The explosion does some pretty nice cold damage to surrounding enemies, chilling them, and honestly, it's absolutely amazing, and I've built entire characters around this, and it's just freaking nuts. So what did they do to my skill? Shadow Imbued skills have up to a 75% chance to release an explosion that deals cold damage. Looks like the same amount of cold damage to a target and surrounding enemies, chilling them for 25%. If they were already chilled or frozen, increase this damage by 100% times. Well, big buffs to my freezing arrows on. Big buffs. Oh, she big. Did they ever watch my freezing arrow videos? Did they never see me like take a level 60 rogue? I'm not even kidding, by the way. I took like a level 60 rogue into a tier 100 nightmare dungeon with Icy Alchemist and literally would fire like one penetrating shot into a group of monsters, and the entire group of monsters would explode in ice and death. Like, did they never watch me do this? Because they just gave me a 100% bonus damage to my ridiculous character that could already one-shot entire screens with literally one click of the mouse. And now I don't even know what's going to happen now. Is my computer monitor just going to explode and shards of glass are going to go in my face? Because I feel like at this point, the only thing that could be even more ridiculous than a level 60 rogue one-shotting an entire Nightmare Dungeon screen, a level 100 Nightmare Dungeon screen at that, would literally be me one-shotting myself in the process. I'm not even sure. That sounds insane. Toxic Alchemist, lucky hit, damaging a poison enemy with a Shadow Imbued skill has up to a 75% chance to create a toxic explosion. Okay. And how did they change it? New lucky hit, Shadow Imbued skills have a 75% chance to create a toxic explosion that deals poison damage over 5 seconds to the target and surrounding enemies. If the enemy was already poisoned, increase this damage by 100% times. Holy Jesus. Toxic Alchemist was the other one that I used with this same thing that literally did more explosion. Boy, y'all better get some stonks in the penetrating shot freezing arrow rogue, because the penetrating shot freezing arrow rogue is about to delete entire game worlds from existence. Lucky hit chance increased from 20 to 30 to 30 to 40% on Wind Force. Sky Hunter, inherent affix changed from damage to distant to critical strike damage. Critical strike damage affix's values increased by 100%. This does not apply to the inherent critical strike damage affix. Effect updated to reflect changes to precision key passive. Previous, the first direct damage you deal to an enemy is guaranteed critical strike. If you had a maximum stacks of precision key passive when you cast the skill, you gain 20 to 30 energy. It can only happen once per cast. New, the first direct damage you deal to an enemy is guaranteed critical strike when you consume precision key passive. Casting a skill, that skill gains 10 to 30% times increased critical strike damage, and you gain 20 to 40 energy. So they added a multiplier. Eagle Horn. Previous, penetrating shot has a 30 to 80% chance to fire an arrow that bounced off walls and scenery. It's kind of cool, but there was a big issue with it. Well, a lot of the times you weren't inside of dungeons that had walls and scenery. It was actually kind of strange. It would be either like really powerful in a like a really tightly clustered dungeon, or it would be absolutely useless in like a wide open field dungeon that didn't have any walls. Um, and the new penetrating shot now makes enemies vulnerable for 3 seconds, and every fourth cast bounces off walls and scenery and deals 20 to 40% bonus damage. So they basically made the bouncing permanent, but only on every fourth cast. Again, though, the problem with that is that, well, it's still only useful within areas that have, walls. I guess you could always just pick a dungeon that has lots of walls and just go farm that dungeon. Sorcerer, Starfall Coronet. That's the new unique item. So Meteor now has 2 charges and 11 to 6 seconds on the charge cooldown instead of a mana cost, and drops 3 additional meteors around the target. Meteor's enchant effect and enhanced meteor drop 1 additional meteor. So basically just like complete and utter meteor spam. This sounds like a really fun one for the fire sorceress, if you guys want to set up a fire sorceress. This would be more of a direct damage fire sorceress, though, because there's 2 different kinds of fire sorceresses, from what I understand. There's the burn, and then there's the direct fire. I believe meteor is more of the direct fire skill, so that would be that direction that you're going in. Aspect of Shredding Blades, offensive. Ice Blades, chance to apply vulnerables increased by 20%. And the vulnerable duration is increased by 4 seconds. You gain 15 to 25% additional multiplier vulnerable damage. Ball Lightning, enhanced Ball Lightning, changed to have its attack rates increased with attack speed up to 25%. Interesting. Blizzard, Mage's Blizzard, condition to be cast while over 50 mana has been removed. That's actually kind of nice. Lightning Spear, critical strikes now apply vulnerable for 3 seconds. Paragon, Searing Heat fixed an issue where critical strike chance bonus was not properly applying. Critical strikes bonus increased from 10 to 12%. Elemental Summoner, conjuration damage bonus increased from 3% times to 5% times as the total amount of your bonus damage with fire, lightning, and cold. Burning Instinct, amount of intelligence required to gain 1% bonus during damage, reduced from 75 to 25. Item updates. Offensive aspect of Shattered Stars. Meteor damage has been changed to be 20 to 30% of the casted meteor's damage. Staff of Lamasem, increased charge bolt chance to be attracted to enemies from 30 to 50 to 40 to 60%. Iceheart Brise, chance to unleash Frost Nova when enemies die, increased from 11 to 20% to 21 to 30%. Gameplay, endgame activities. HellTides will now be active every hour. They already did that last season. With a 5-minute gap in between HellTide will be 55 minutes of every hour. So players can more consistently acquire Distilled Fear. We've reworked how Distilled Fear is collected from Nightmare Dungeons. Players will always gain a Distilled Fear after completing a Nightmare Dungeon of at least Tier 30. Every 10 tiers after Tier 30, there is an increasing chance for an additional Distilled Fear to be rewarded. Completing Tier 90 Nightmare Dungeons and beyond will always grant 3 Distilled Fears. The Purified Sigil reward for completing Nightmare Dungeons will now always grant a sigil 1 tier greater than the Nightmare Dungeon just completed. Items. Scroll of Escape. That's hardcore stuff. Now will populate in the lost item stash if the player missed one that was dropped. Stack limit increased from 20 to 99. Appear as legendary so that they are harder to miss when dropped on the ground. The chance for Scattered Prisms to drop when defeating elite monsters has been reduced. Scattered Prisms can now be acquired from Legion event chests. The material cap has been increased from 99,999 to 999,999. Yeah, I saw that coming a mile off. I don't think people realize just how much people grind on these games and how much materials they can stack up relatively quickly, especially when they literally throw them at your face like wet towels at a spa. Treasure goblins spawned while fighting Avarice now have the same loot potential as normally encountered treasure goblins. Tier 3 and 4 World Boss weekly caches can now drop unique items. They never could drop unique items before. I tried. I farmed so many of those world mode caches and never really got any unique items from them. And I started to wonder if they just were incapable of dropping unique items. Well, yeah, now they can drop unique items. Make sure you farm those and exploit the crap out of it, because chances are they'll probably drop like an uber unique or something, because they probably made a mistake and messed it up, and like there'll be like 59 Chacos on day one coming from these unique things, because they always mess up stuff like this, and then they'll be like, oh well, since it was only 59 people who got it, we're just gonna let them have it, and it was our bad, my bad. We didn't mean to have 59 Chacos pop out of the chest, but it's no big deal, right? You guys will get one eventually. The increased cap for item power on the drops from world bosses has been adjusted. Previous plus 100 to min, plus 100 to max. New plus 65 to min, plus 25 to max. World bosses are intended to be to reward powerful loot for your level. With this change, at high level, players will see maximum item power gear from world bosses at higher levels. Item power ranges for items dropped by endgame bosses such as Varshan and Zir have been decreased for rare and legendary items. Unique power has not been changed. Examples. Note that the current range for unique items was previously the range for all items. 675 to 750, 650 to 725, so they reduced it by 25. Grigore, 850 to 925, 800 to 875. So basically, we're not going to be farming 925 items from these guys anymore. Beast in the Ice, however, still drops 925 items. Okay. Duriel remains unchanged and will still always drop 925 items. Nightmare Dungeon item power scaling has been adjusted to more consistently drop high item power loot in high-tier Nightmare Dungeons. Examples, monsters at level 100, legendary item power range. Previous 820 to 925, new 845 to 925. Rare item power range 785 to 925, new 810 to 925. So they're beefing up the item power of all the monsters. Monsters at level 125, 845 to 925, now 910 to 925. Okay. And 885 to 925 for rares. All monsters above level 144, Nightmare Dungeon tier 90 plus, now are guaranteed to drop 925 item power gear. An actual reason to go to the higher tier dungeons. Miscellaneous. Potion count will no longer be reset after dying and being revived by another player. Oof. Oof. That's a big oof. That is high level oof there. I don't think they understand what they just did, because a lot of people would just simply die deliberately to get their potions back. Now you're just making people go back to town to get their potions back for no reason. And you've just made like all content harder too. So if a person was struggling and they died multiple times inside of a dungeon for whatever reason, you've now made it harder for that person that's struggling, because the person that's struggling is now going to revive with no potions, which not really sure this was a good change. I think there's going to be a lot of angry people out there. A lot of the people that are good that don't need the potions, they won't care, and the people that are really bad that like are dying all the time anyway, they won't really care. But the people who were in the middle, who like relied on those extra potions to help carry them through a dungeon, oh, they're gonna be pissed. The Hatred's Chosen Siphon effect is no longer based on lucky hits. The Greed Shrine effect will now drop additional gold after the effect expires. The amount of gold dropped is determined by how many enemies were killed while the shrine buff was active. Oh look, we've got Diablo 3 Gold Rush. Uber unique items can now be unlocked as transmogs. Ooh, nice. Fancy. New settings have been added to allow navigation in the world of full keyboard mouse controls, including the movement of WASD keys instead of your mouse. Bonus from keywords such as berserking will now also denote whether any associated damage bonus is additive or multiplicative. Event timers are now also displayed on the world map. Visual effect for being chilled will now visually increase in intensity to denote how close the chilled target is to being frozen. That's nice. The default button bindings for mount actions have been adjusted to be more intuitive on controller. An additional stash tab is now available to be purchased in-game with gold. Maximum stash tabs available are now 6. The icons for HellTide chests and mystery chests and living steel chests have been updated to make them more visually distinctive from the other chest icons. The button for confirming gold amount in the trade interface on controller has been changed to your triangle on console. This will allow pressing A or X on console to bring up the virtual keyboard to manually enter gold amounts when trading. We have introduced a new way for players to approach reworking their skill tree. Players can now refund whole paths or skill clumps while seeing a preview of it all. Players can now also see how many skill points will be refunded to them and how much gold it will cost in advance. The new respec, the new respec options allow players to easily refund or re-add their skills in a flexible way. Our goal with these additions is to make purchasing and refunding nodes less time consuming while encouraging players to experiment more. Whoever wrote this note was in a rush. Bug fixes. Accessibility fixed an issue where the screen reader did not read the quantity of a consumable in the action wheel. Fixed an issue where the subtitles for dialogue and lore books cannot be turned off. Fixed an issue where the screen reader could malfunction when repeatedly opening a vendor's service menu. Gameplay fixed an issue where players' attacks could still be suppressed when some of their character's body was outside of a suppressor field. Fixed an issue where effects that increased max life by a percentage, such as Elixir of Fortitude, did not account for certain other max life bonuses, such as that granted by an affix on equipment. Fixed an issue where the drowned sea hag could spawn an excessive number of minions. I hate the drowned sea hag. She's a terrible boss. She's got that freaking like water cannon that shoots right up your anus. I mean it too, like right up the anus. I mean that jank just like imagine just like a big burly dude just like right underneath of you, and he just punches you right in the anus. Like that's basically what the sea hag does on a regular basis. That's the whole fight. The whole fight is literally her just spawning these little things on the ground, and if you don't move out of the way, punch in the anus. And you usually die from it, too, because it's really freaking powerful for no reason. Probably die from a excessive punch in the anus, too. Fixed an issue where Echo of Lilith could still attack the player after being defeated during the second phase of the encounter. I had that happen to me a couple times. Fixed an issue where the umbral aspect could grant large amounts of resources when used crowd control skills on structured enemies. Okay. I don't know. Yeah. Fixed an issue where various skills and effects, such as Devouring Blaze, did not consider staggered bosses as crowd controlled. Well, that's just garbage. I mean, if you're using an ability like this and you're relying on the boss to be staggered and to get that bonus so that the boss is considered crowd controlled, it's pretty freaking crappy if the ability that you're relying on to be used during that small time frame, which is only like 5 or 6 seconds, right? I mean, bosses are only staggered for like 5 or 6 seconds. So you spend the entire time trying to stagger a boss, hoping for that extra bonus, and then you just don't get it. That's really crappy. I mean, it's a good thing they fixed it, but I hate reading about patch notes like this, about things that people are expecting to be useful, and then you're like, you read the patch notes, and you're like, so it wasn't useful. The whole season I was using it, it wasn't useful. It didn't do anything. Well, that's just amazing. I'm so glad I read this patch notes now to know that literally for an entire season I was relying on this ability to do what it was supposed to do, and it wasn't doing anything. Barbarian fixed an issue where the Bonebreaker's legendary Paragon node didn't have a buff indicator. Fixed an issue where the guaranteed overpower from Earthstriker's aspect could trigger on basic attacks. Fixed an issue where the charge cast by Ancients, spawned by the aspect of the Ancestral Charge, did not trigger explosions from the Brawler's aspect. Oh, nice. You can tie in the explosions from the charge thing. There's an aspect that makes it so whenever you kick or when you kill an enemy with kick or charge, like they explode like within a certain number of seconds. Like you got like 2 seconds to kill them. That's pretty cool. I didn't know there was a bug with charge, but I've been abusing the crap out of that one for a while. Fixed an issue where Hammer of Ancients was dealing more damage than intended due to the bonus from Violent upgrade also being applied even if the Furious upgrade was chosen. Fixed an issue where the Hammer of the Ancients was dealing more damage than intended due to the bonus from the violent upgrade also being applied, even if it wasn't chosen. So basically, Hoda barbarians were getting the violent. Is this a snapshotting thing? Hota barbarb. Hoti burb. Hota burber. I just want to take a look at the skill real quick. Hota burber. So after overpowering with Hammer of the Ancients, you deal 30% more damage for 5 seconds. So the Violent Hammer of the Ancients was basically just free applying, despite the fact that people were choosing the Furious one, which is the one that gives you the extra bonus damage per percentage. So if you were using the Furious, you were getting the Violent for free, which sounds like Hoda's going to go down a bit, because if you were getting that Furious for free, that was a pretty big damage bonus that you were getting on top of the other. Druid fixed an issue where the tooltip for Envenom displayed its damage bonus as additive when it was in fact multiplicative. Fixed an issue where Enhanced Ravens wasn't increasing critical strike chance to enemies hit. Another one of those stupid things where it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to use the Ravens to increase my crit chance, and then like you read a patch notes like this, and for a whole season you use the Ravens to increase your crit chance, right? You used it. We used it, but then it wasn't actually working. It wasn't actually doing anything. It was a placebo. They were placebo ravens. That was the new brand of placebo ravens. We're getting the actual ravens this season. Fixed an issue where the direwolf's aspect did not specify that it also made Grizzly Rage function as a werewolf skill. Necromancer fixed an issue where the bonus from the Ring of the Starless Skies could get removed when the aspect of Gore Quills was activated. Oh no, Blizzard already talked about snapshotting, and they talked about fixing it in the developer update. So I don't think snapshotting is going to stick around for very long. And if you guys build your characters around snapshot exploits, you're going to be pretty sad when they take it all away. Which I'm pretty sure is coming soon. The fixed an issue where Shadow and Bone Mages did not cast Blizzard when the Coldbringer aspect was equipped. Fix an issue where the Blood Mist could fail to activate while under the effect of Bandit's Smoke Bomb. Fix an issue where the Splintering aspect would scale more than 2 times when used on a two-handed weapon. That would explain why the two-handed weapons were so much more damage than the one-handed weapons, which I always kind of wondered why the freaking hell the two-handed weapons seem to do so much more damage on the Necromancer than they were supposed to. But, you know what? Yeah, that's literally it. So that makes sense. It makes a whole lot more sense. Which basically means that the Bone Spear Necromancer might have just got freaking nerfed. Because the splintering aspect, I believe, is the main aspect that you use for the Bone Spear Necromancer, and it's what allows the Bone Spear Necromancer to do so much damage in the two-handed weapons. Rogue fixed an issue where Tibalt's Will was increasing the cap for combo points. That exploit is gone. Everybody knew that was an exploit. We had fun with it last season. We'll talk about it with our grandkids one day. We'll be like, Sonny, there was a patch that made it so that I had 31 combo points. We're like, sure, Grandpa, 31 combo points. Psh, you know what, Grandpa, we're going to send you to a home. This is the day. This is the day that all you grandpas were created. Fixed an issue where returning twisting blades while using the Blade Dancer's aspect were applying full poison imbue damage instead of the expected % of damage detailed in the aspect's description. Another nerf to Twisting Blades. So apparently, Twisting Blades was applying full poison imbue damage, despite the fact that it was only supposed to be applying a percentage, because of course the Twisting Blades was only supposed to be doing like 20% of its total damage. But instead of doing 20% of the total poison damage, it was doing 100% of the total poison damage, basically completely eliminating the entire, like, hey, this is a weaker version of the full thing. So another nerf to Twisting Blades. Fixed an issue where the Paragon Glyph Snare did not benefit Smoke Grenade when it is considered a trap skill by the explosive Verve aspect. Fixed an issue where the Gorger enemies could still target rogue players under the effect of concealment with their stun attack. Sorceress. I will never call it Sorcerer. Mr. Rocky Picture Horror Show boy. Sorceress fixed an issue where the various powers and effects that are granted by evading, such as the unique powers of the Asus Heirloom and Flicker Step, did not work properly when using the Teleport enchantment. It's kind of nice. Fixed an issue where the bonus evade charges granted by the Oculus didn't increase when upgrading the weapon at the blacksmith. Fixed an issue where Ball Lightning was dealing far more damage than intended. They don't even like tell you what they fixed. They're just like, it was broken, guys. Like, it was broken. Okay, we fixed. It was like there was a big hole, and we kind of had to patch it up and put some spackle and paint on it, and then like put a tapestry over it because it was still ugly. Developers note, Ball Lightning was dealing an unintended amount of damage because of its enhanced upgrade. This bug fix returns the amount of damage done by the skill to the intended quantities. So it sounds like Ball Lightning has been nerfed back quite a bit. I wouldn't expect Ball Lightning to be the amazing thing it is in this season that it was last season. Fixed an issue where Static Surge legendary node would trigger from automatic cast of skills, such as Chain Lightning Enchantment. Fixed an issue where Ice Spikes would instantly explode when casting Deep Freeze with the Frozen Tundra aspect equipped. Fixed an issue where the buff from the Battle Casters aspect could unexpectedly fall off. Fixed an issue where the Protection passive did not take into account any bonuses to Barrier Generation. User interface and user experience fixed an issue in the season journey menu where hovering over aspects rewarded for completing a chapter on the season journey could sometimes not display the name of the aspect. Fixed an issue where the minimap icon indicating the stash has new items, i.e. recovered lost items, only displayed when close to the stash. Fixed an issue where the Creatures of the Night incense had an incorrect tooltip. Fixed an issue where certain stats would not display for all classes in the character details window, such as damage with two-handed slashing weapons would not display for necromancers. Fix an issue where pressing X or square on the console would confirm the salvage of a legendary or unique item. Fix an issue where controller navigation in the vendor buyback menu could malfunction. Fixed various instances where the minimap was inaccurate. Fixed various instances where quest pins and objectives were inaccurate. Quests and dungeons. Fixed an issue where progression through the Flooded Depths could get broken if a ladder traversal was skipped to the teleport. Fixed an issue where the Animus Urn and the Bastion of Faith could be skipped by using a leap or teleport. Fixed an issue where progression could be blocked in Alder's Cave if enemies were killed before destroying the second barricade. Fixed an issue where some enemies were not marked on the minimap during the Slay All Enemies objective in Nostrava Deepwood. Fixed an issue where elite encountered that transformed from initially harmless people could respawn after being defeated. Fixed an issue where the Tomb Lord boss in the Shifting City could teleport outside the boss arena, which would cause the fight to restart. Fixed an issue where there was no healing well in the Conclave. Fixed an issue where the Battle-Hardened Nightmare Dungeon affix could grant damage reduction even if a player was above 90% life. Fixed an issue where sealed penitence cache quest didn't properly grant rewards for completion. Fixed multiple instances where the final straw quest could not be completed properly. Fixed an issue where the quest objective wouldn't update when entering the cellar during the Acts of Atonement quest. Miscellaneous fixed an issue where upgrading a damaged item at the blacksmith would further lower the item's durability and break it. Oh man, I had this happen so many times. I'd go to the blacksmith, upgrade my items, and they would all shatter. I'm not talking about one item would shatter. I mean everything I was wearing would just shatter, and I would have to go repair them all. Various stability and visual performance improvements. All right, so let's go over this real quick. Let's do a little bit of a recap, and let's talk about some of the stuff now that we've actually read everything. These notes are absolutely massive, by the way. I feel like I'm scrolling for miles. Pain Gorger's Gauntlets is a like all-encompassing unique and seems really freaking cool. It's basically a skill that allows you to like mark a bunch of targets and then use a basic skill, and then that basic skill hits like everything within range. This actually might work really well with, for instance, the Druid's old staff of the Great Staff of the Crone, because then you could cast two basic skills at the same time, which could be rather interesting, and then those two basic skills would hit everything within range. Depending on how you set this up, I could really imagine, and this is just something that I was thinking, is if you did a not a shred druid, sorry, a poison druid. I actually had set up a poison druid based off of the basic skills. And what I was doing was I was using the basic skills to scale the poison damage. Well, basically what this would allow you to do is you would just like use one big AoE attack and then use your basic skill, which would then poison everything. You would poison an entire field. So it would be kind of interesting to see how powerful this could be set up in the correct hands. Overall, I mean, they added a Kiss Curse item with the Juggernauts aspect. Gives you a little bit of armor, but also takes away your evade. Basically, almost completely. It's like 100% increased cooldown on your evade. Not really sure about that one. And then this one here, also kind of set up for basic skills. Seems very similar to Edge Masters, but specifically for basics. So that one's kind of interesting too. They fixed Ring of the Starless Skies. That was good. It seems much better now than it was before. For an Uber unique, it was definitely one of like the least Uber uniques, and so it's much better now than it was before. Melted Heart of Saleg got nerfed. It's now only 75% instead of 100% of incoming damage. Other than that, though, they haven't really changed it all that much. It still is going to make you relatively immortal. The difference now is that it will still deal damage to your health, and you're going to have some type of way to heal yourself in addition to the Melted Heart of Saleg. But think about it as a flat 75% damage reduction, though, because basically that's what it is. It's still going to transfer damage to your resource, and if you have infinite resource, then it becomes a 75% flat damage reduction on top of your normal damage reduction. So it's still going to be very powerful. And they gave it 60 maximum resource instead of 30, which is a mistake in my opinion, because characters like the Necromancer, the Hoda Barbarian, and several other characters that can scale damage based on maximum resource are going to absolutely eat this thing up with 60 maximum resource. Just to give you an example, they recently changed Bone Spirit so that Bone Spirit works as 4% per maximum resource for damage, and that's not including Ossified Essence and Serration and a bunch of other things, right? So 60 times 4 means that literally if you are a Bone Spirit Necromancer and you throw this amulet on, you've now got a 240% times multiplier added to your Bone Spirit. It's pretty insane when you calculate out the characters that can really get advantage of that 60 maximum resource. Hoda Barbarians are what, 1% per, so they get a 60% times multiplier. There's a lot of characters that can still get really good use out of Melted Heart of Saleg. Despite the nerf, still going to be OP. Overpower nerfed across the board. Everything I saw with Overpower looked like they had really kind of brought it down a peg. About 50% of what it currently is, it looks like. I mean, it might still be really powerful, but it definitely have hit Overpower right in the gonads. They looks like they added the new unique that gives the Rend bonus. It seems kind of interesting. It kind of ties Rend with some brawling skills, which brawling also gives berserking and stuff too. And then it also has like stacks of Rend's bleed, and it increases the duration. It seems pretty nice. If you're a Rend fan, a Rend Barbarian fan, might be a good idea to check out the Ring of the Ravenous. And then they also gave this one here, the Upheaval Guaranteed Overpower. I believe this is a new one for them. And it basically just gives you a guaranteed overpower for, what is it? Upheaval is guaranteed to overpower and deals 10 to 20% increased damage. And then the timer is reduced by 4 seconds when Upheaval overpowers a boss or elite enemy. And that's every 25 seconds, which is kind of a long duration, but it's still a guaranteed overpower once every 25 seconds, or 21 seconds if you're fighting a boss or an elite. They did massive changes to charge. Charge has been buffed across the board. They also transferred a lot of the power from the legendary aspects to charge. Might be a good idea to check out charge. I mean, it got like a 900% damage increase, as you can see there. Leap got a small damage increase. And I think that's mainly because a lot of the aspects that are involved with charge also are involved with leap, so I think they just increased leap's damage because they also in turn reduce the damage of a lot of the aspects for charge. They, as you can see here, overpower damage decreased from 15 to 8% per rank. So again, another nerf to overpower there. They buffed up Walking Arsenal quite a bit. They buffed up Unconstrained, and they buffed up Gushing Wounds. All three of them. So all three of those key passives have seen a little bit of work. Weapon expertise leveling has been cut, but as I talked about earlier, it's actually really easy to level up your weapons. You don't really have to worry about this too much. Just go to the training dummy in Kyovashad and just set your character up with the right weapon and just like put a freaking heavy object or a book on the mouse and just let it freaking go at it. You'll have a level 10 skill in roughly like 10 to 20 minutes. It's not really that big of a deal. And this means it's going to be even faster, so like 5 to 10 minutes. And with the training dummy method, you can level up these skills super duper fast. They did some changes to the shouts, as I can see here, and basically what their general goal here is they want to make sure that you don't feel constrained into using all three shouts, and you very well can just simply get by with one now with the way that they've changed things. Trying to think, see if there's other stuff in here. As you can see, these are the charge skills that they kind of like nerfed, but it's really because they transferred a lot of that damage from the aspects to the actual skill itself, so that's fine. That just means that you don't really have to use the aspects. For Druid, they added the really nice Lightning Storm unique, which looks pretty sexy, if I'm being perfectly honest. They buffed up Rabies a little bit too, and they gave it a new aspect. I'm not really sure if that's going to be enough, but we'll find out. Lacerate got a small buff as well. Lacerate kind of sucks, but it did get a buff, so maybe check it out again and see if it sucks less. Cataclysm got a buff as well as Supreme Cataclysm with more vulnerable time, more lightning damage, and more twister damage. So it's kind of nice. They also increased the healing a little bit, the Fortify increase. I mean, in general, like it seems like they're kind of trying to make the Druid a little bit more tanky, which I thought the Druid was like the tankiest one, pretty much, just in general. They did some weird changes to Unrestrained. I'm not really sure why they did this. They increased the duration, or the control impairing effects duration reduction, but then they decreased the control impairing effects reduction from triple to double. So they changed it from 3 to 5, and then so that makes it 15. But then instead of tripling it, they doubled it, so it goes from 15 to 30. Whereas before it was 9 to, what is that, 8, and then so like 20. I guess they brought it up by like 2%, like 2%, I guess. Natural Fortitude, they increased the Fortify on that as well. They also did this really weird thing with the Thorns. Apparently, like they want Thorns Druids now, so they gave Druid a way to get a large amount of Thorns through the Prickle Skin boon, bringing it up to a maximum of 4,776, I would assuming, at level 100. They've increased the maximum spirit on Gift of the Stag, and they finally changed the Avian Wrath bonus to actually be multiplicative instead of additive, which doesn't really do much now that they nerfed critical strike damage and made it so that there's a cap. So, like, if you exceed the cap, it's still additive anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Bonus lucky hit chance on Tectonic increased. I mean, there was a bunch of little changes in here. One of the big ones is that aspect of the Blurred Beast is no longer double dipping in damage. They completely changed that around, so it's basically just single dipping now instead of double dipping. It's a flat percentage damage increase as opposed to dealing the poison damage directly to them. It's part of the entire thing with the Shred Druid and how they were getting like trillions of damage. So they're nipping this in the bud. I swear, no matter how much they do the Shred Druid, like how many times they nerf the Shred Druid, it always comes back from the grave. So I'm not even going to even pretend that this actually fixes the issue. Because there's every chance it might not. They reduced the boulder spirit cost, so for those of you who are doing the boulder spinny druid, you want a little bit of a bonus there. Maybe you want to do the Dolem stone druid again, and you can do it with a little bit less mana. The necromancer got the mutilator plate, which basically self-immolates yourself in a blood lance and gives yourself fortification as well as some blood orbs, which seems actually kind of interesting. Not gonna lie. And then on top of that, Bone Spirit got a huge buff, which casting Bone Spirit also launches 18 Bone Splinters in all directions, dealing 200 to 400% increased damage and generating 6 essence per hit. This one right here is massive for the Necromancer and quite honestly just insane. And I really want to test that one out myself. Honestly, it sounds amazing. And let me tell you, like, the satisfaction that you get from firing off a Bone Spirit is already amazing enough, because when it hits those targets and they all fall down like bowling pins, like, it's amazing. And then seeing 18 bone spear splinters fire off in all directions sounds pretty cool too. I'm not even gonna lie, it sounds pretty amazing. They did some weird stuff with Corpse Explosion by reducing the lucky hit chance from 40 to 25%, but they increased the damage. So I'm not really sure about that. The lucky hit chance decrease does hurt some builds. They increase the damage of Blight, increase the damage of Sever. They increase the damage per essence from Bone Spirit from 4 to 3, which was a big bump. I mean, that's a huge percentage increase, especially considering you can have like almost 300 essence. And so then like a 1% increase is the equivalent of a 300% multiplier, which is a lot. That's a lot. And then they also fixed the Dreadful Bone Spirit, which restored essence. So it used to only restore 30 essence. Now it restores a minimum of 30 essence with a scaling percentage, which means it can restore more than 30 essence, which is definitely very nice. So if you happen to get like 300 maximum essence as an example, you can restore a total of 90 maximum essence, which is definitely nice. They changed Decompose around a lot. Decompose might be worth a second look if you guys ever wanted to use it. It makes enemies vulnerable now. Decompose also gives you a movement speed increase. There's a bunch of little things that they did with Decompose. They also did some really strange things with Necromancer's Fortify options. They took away the Fortify option for Blood Mist and gave them critical strike chance instead. They also took away the Fortify option for Dreadful Bone Prison and gave them reduce active cooldowns instead. They seem to be taking away some of the Necromancer's Fortify options, which is a little upsetting because the Necromancer already had a lot of trouble fortifying. And they also made it so that you can actually walk through bone prisons now, which is definitely nice. And they swapped around the enhanced and ghastly bone prison. They didn't take either away. They flipped them so that one is in one place and the other is in the other place. Book of the Dead, they did a pretty nice thing with the golem. Apparently the bone golem was able to attack like in a cleave in front of him, but the blood and iron golem weren't. So they basically gave the blood and iron golem the same cleave so that he can hit targets around him in a main area. They also did this interesting thing with the Bone Golem by giving him thorns equal to your armor value for the duration of the taunt, which sounds pretty impressive if you want to run like a Thorns Necro. That seems like it would give him a lot of freaking thorns. And then you could also stack more armor yourself to put even more thorns on the Bone Golem. So that'd be kind of interesting. Then they upgraded the Fortify on the Bone Mage, which is an odd thing. So they nerfed the Fortify on the... they nerfed the Fortify on Bone Prison, and they nerfed the Fortify on the Blood Mist. But then they brought the Fortify up on the Bone Mage, which is weird. They also beefed up the Skeletal Priest healing. I don't care how much they increased that Skeletal Priest healing. A 8-second duration over time heal is never going to be useful enough to save them from one-shots and things like that. It's just, if if they're at like half health and I'm trying to spam heals on them and it takes 8 seconds to heal them and they're at 25% health or whatever, and the boss comes in and wails on them, they're dead. They really need to change this into an actual like pulse heal, not just a over time heal. They increased the damage of the cult leader massively by making it based on attack speed, which is really quite strange. It's I haven't seen this before, but basically, the more attack speed your minions have, the more damage they deal. And if you guys are unaware of if you guys are unaware of how much attack speed that you can potentially get, let me inform you. You can probably get somewhere between like 2 to 300% increased attack speed for your minions. I've played around with it, which is insane. And since you can get like 300% increased attack speed, and it's 10% per 20%, then you just cut that in half, and that's like a 150% multiplier that you can add to your minions. And of course, they're attacking really fast now, so not only are they attacking a much quicker, but now they're hitting much harder in the same process, which could make them absolutely insane. I don't know. Additional bonuses from health to damage, so the golem got a damage bump. The Swelling Curse, which is the Bone Spirit one that always kind of sucked, they changed it to critical strike chance. And then it also gives you maximum essence for every enemy hit. 2 maximum essence for 15 seconds, which is actually pretty cool. The amount of damage that you could potentially get from this, depending on how many monsters you hit with your Bone Spirit, is pretty massive. A Bone Spirit Necromancer might be a good play this season. They added this interesting thing for Iron Maiden, which turns it into a darkness skill, which is pretty cool. So that's definitely another way that you can convert like a regular skill into a darkness skill. It's not, they didn't really change the ability much. They just made it so that you could convert it into a darkness skill. The rotting aspect, chance to spawn additional corpses increased to 50 to 100%. This is another buff to decompose. Hulking aspect, they buffed again, which I don't think anybody's ever going to use that thing. Beastfall Boots sounds interesting. It's basically a way that the rogue can have like a scaling multiplier based upon per energy consumed. It's a lot very similar to the way that the Hoda Barbarian works, very similar to the way that the kick skill works on the Barbarian, very similar to the way that the Bone Spirit skill works. So it's basically a scaling damage effect that consumes all your energy and deals additional damage per enemy energy consumed. I'm not really sure how well this one's going to work out. It does require you to cast an ultimate skill, so it's on a fairly long cooldown. But interesting. Then they also added this one that gives you a nice defensive effect when you break concealment. 10% to all maximum resistances and 10% resistance to actually beef that up to that amount. And anytime you break concealment, you can get this bonus maximum resist, which is, max resist is actually pretty powerful. They did some interesting changes to enhance caltrops. They reduced the cast time of random arrows. They increased the chill percent of cold imbuement. They kind of beefed up cold imbuement a little bit. They nerfed mixed poison imbuement by taking away the double damage. So the double damage is gone from poison imbuement. They also beefed up all the ranged abilities by a little bit. They also kind of flipped around some of the skills here or there. I think they actually nerfed penetrating shot by 10% crit chance. I looked at it for a while, and I think that's basically the conclusion I came to, is they nerfed it by 10% crit chance. The passives... close quarters combat, they increased the attack speed per stack. They also did some reworking on the precision aspect, or precision. Basically what they did is times 50% crit. They made a scaling damage bonus of critical strike damage. So precision now scales with critical strike damage. And then on top of that, we also have a scaling effect for... did I miss one? I think I missed one. That was Inner Sight. They also changed the chilling weight a little bit so that it increases chill effect more. And they also made the knockback actually give you the critical strike chance instead of only versus the enemy. It's actually just for you. Inner sight, that's the one. Core skill damage. So inner sight is now core skill damage bonus, and precision is now critical strike damage bonus. So they scale off of those now. They have a scaling multiplier. Another nerf to Twisting Blades. They actually kind of hit Twisting Blades pretty hard. Every single time I was looking, Twisting Blades got another nerf. I'm not. Twisting Blades is like the freaking like undead zombie though that keeps coming back from the grave, and I have no idea of whether or not it's going to actually be nerfed, but they hit it pretty hard this season. So if you're a Twisting Blades fan, well, I'm sorry. Icy Alchemist and Toxic Alchemist, which are two exploding effects, these got buffed kind of crazy. They didn't really touch them very much. They kind of left them the same, but they added this, increase this, if they were already chilled or frozen, increase this damage by 100%. If the enemy was already poisoned, increase this damage by 100% times. I mean, these two things right here, if you guys have never actually seen my freezing arrows on, I call her freezing arrows on, but she's a rogue. Boy, I can like fire one arrow and delete an entire screen. And this basically just makes it so that I can fire one arrow and delete freaking you from existence. I don't even know. Like the amount of extra damage that this is going to give is going to be insane, and I know it is. It's not exactly what was needed, and quite honestly, I think it might actually just turn this character into the most ridiculous powerhouse I've ever seen. If you guys have never seen that particular build that I put up, I believe that is still up on my channel. I think I just called her Frostbite. Not really sure. Can't remember if I did that recently, if it was a long time ago. But that particular build is actually really solid. Doesn't actually require any kind of season mechanics. It's this one right here. Cold, Poison, Shadow, Explosion Rogue. And this particular build that I did, which I actually do have a link to the build planner right here, is actually kind of insane. If you guys want to link there. But with the changes that they made to these two abilities, she just skyrocketed. Her stonks just skyrocketed through the roof. They also did some interesting changes to Wind Force, Sky Hunter, and Eaglehorn. They kind of changed them a little bit to match those core skill and critical strike damage bonuses for inner sight and precision that we were talking about earlier. Increased the lucky hit chance on Wind Force. They changed Eaglehorn around so that it's every fourth cast instead of a percentage chance, and it gives you the damage bonus as well. They changed Sky Hunter so that it matches the critical strike damage from the actual key passive now, because it's based on the precision key passive. Sorceress got this really crazy meteor helmet that basically drops like 1,000 meteors on the ground. I mean, I'm assuming that if you set things up properly with the ability having, like, if you hit more than a certain number of targets with meteors, you get like an extra meteor, and then like the enchantment can drop a meteor, and then you can get like 3 meteors from the coronet. You could have anywhere between like 5, maybe 6 meteors dropping on the ground at any given time, which sounds kind of insane with the Starfall coronet, so it'll be interesting to see how people build characters around that. They also added the aspect of the Shredding Blades, which is Ice Blades' chance to apply vulnerables increased. They gave Ice Blades the ability to make monsters vulnerable, and then this makes the vulnerable last longer and gives you more damage versus vulnerable targets. The Ball Lightning was changed to have its attack rate increased with attack speed, which is interesting. The Mage's Blizzard condition, which is the one where it required you have 50 mana or more, has been removed. They basically went through the process of kind of like making the conjurations a little bit more interesting, meteor a little bit more interesting, if I have to kind of like sum this up. And of course they changed some of the meteor abilities as well. They also did a little bit of a adjustment to Charge Bolt if you want to try out a Charge Bolt sorceress again. And then Ice Heart Rise got a little bit of an adjustment, which is from 11 to 20% to 21 to 30% chance to unleash Frost Novas. It's already kind of ridiculous in what it does. The main issue with Ice Heart Rise is it's just not defensive enough, so you end up dropping it for a more defensive piece. HellTides are now permanent with 5-minute gaps. They talked about making Distilled Fears easier to get. You can get up to 3 in Nightmare Tier 90s. But you'll get like at least 1 guaranteed as long as you're doing like a tier 30. They talked about increasing the cap size for Scrolls of Escape and making it easier to find them if you miss them. Scattered Prisons apparently again reduced the drop rate of them, but then made it so they drop from Legion of Interest. Material cap was increased to 999,000. That's kind of nice. There's a whole section in here that basically revolves around item power, but before we get into that, world tier boss weekly caches can actually drop unique items now, which they couldn't before. So nice to know. But basically what they did was they kind of increased item power across the board for higher level monsters and decreased item power for lower level monsters. So if the monster, say, is like level 75, they decrease the item power. But if the monster is, say, like a level 144 Nightmare Dungeon, then they're going to guarantee you 925 item power. And it scales basically down the range, right? So the higher level the monster, now actually the higher level of the item power that you're going to get. And going into the higher Nightmare Dungeons will guarantee you higher item power, which is definitely nice. The miscellaneous stuff, potion counts. This was a kind of a big one. It was kind of like a little slap in the face to everybody who has ever died to restore their potions. You can no longer restore your potions by dying. Not exactly sure what the reasoning is behind this change. I feel like the only people that this punishes is the ones who were having trouble with the game. I feel like you're just taking the characters that are having trouble with the game and you're just punishing them specifically, because the people who aren't having trouble with the game don't care. And the people who are, like absolutely terrible at the game, who never have any potions, they don't care. The only people that are going to really care about this are the people that are right smack dab in the middle, who are the ones that actually do have trouble with the game, who are struggling a little bit and are trying to, keep up with their friends or whatever, and they're losing potions because maybe their healing isn't quite right, and then they die and they get their potions back, and that's helpful. Like, especially in boss fights and stuff like that for the players that struggle, some of them will die deliberately just to get their potions back. So that's just not even a thing anymore. They did some sort of thing with the Greed Shrine where, depending on the number of monster kills, you get more gold at the end. So it's kind of like a gold rush from Diablo 3. Uber Uniques can be unlocked as transmogs. That's an interesting one. So if you've got Uber Uniques from last season that you no longer want because they're on the Eternal Realm, or maybe you got 2 or 3 of them or whatever, I guess you can delete them and get transmogs now. WASD controls have been added for those of you who are interested in that. They also did something like bonus from keywords such as Berserkings now also denote whether any associated damage bonus is additive or multiplicative. So it's kind of interesting. It's actually going to tell you whether or not you're getting additive or multiplicative bonuses now. This is an interesting one here. The visual effect of the chill, it now actually shows you the chilling effect as it increases or decreases on the target. By the way, let me remind you guys, don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoy the stream. We're going to have additional stash tab. That's definitely nice too. They separated out the icons for the mystery of the living steel chest from all the other ones, making them more visually distinctive so you can actually tell which ones are which without hovering your mouse over them. The trade problem on consoles was fixed. That's basically what that's about. And they added basically a respec mode in the thing, so you don't have to spend gold to pull points out and put them back in. You can just pull everything out, figure out what you want to do, put everything back in, confirm it, and then you pay gold once you're finished. But you don't have to pay gold for each individual action that you do. It'll save you a little bit of gold, I guess, but gold isn't really that big of an issue. Um, Trying to remember if there's anything else in here. Something about like the suppressor field was apparently not letting you attack if you were like partially inside the suppressor field. There were some items like the Elixir of Fortitude that were not giving the correct life bonuses. Trying to like get through some of the good ones here. Ah, yes, the bug fixes. So there's a couple of these in here that were kind of important. One was the Hammer of the Ancients applying its second upgrade at the same time, despite the fact that you had not chosen that upgrade. So that's kind of a nerf to Hammer of the Ancients. Although it's a bug fix, not really a nerf, it will actually lower the damage output pretty significantly. Charge got fixed with the Brawlers aspect, which was the one that makes things explode. There was a problem with Earthstriker's aspect applying on basic attacks, which it will no longer do. And for the Druid, they fixed the Envenom tooltip to actually display as multiplicative. Apparently, Ravens weren't actually increasing critical strike chance, which was probably one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. Like, that was one of the whole reasons you used them was for the crit strike bonus, and they weren't doing it, but they're doing it now. Necromancer, there was a small bug with the Ring of the Star of the Skies that was fixed. Apparently, the Shadow and Bones mages weren't using the Blizzard, which they are now. There was also apparently a bug with the splintering aspect that would scale more than 2 times when using two-handed weapons, which I know it's a bug, and they're just fixing a bug, but this is a nerf to the Bone Spear Necromancer. So if you are a big fan of the Bone Spear Necromancer, apparently there was some sort of bug that would basically allow two-handed weapons to get more damage than what they were actually supposed to from the splintering aspect, which apparently was one of the biggest issues with the two-handed weapons being preferred on the Bone Spear Necromancers over anything else. Not because they were actually the superior choice, but specifically because this aspect was applying more damage multipliers than what it was supposed to if you were using a two-hander. They took away the combo points for Rogue. Of course, that was a bug. Everybody knew that was going. They also nerfed Twisting Blades again here by taking away a bug, which is the full Poison Imbue was applying even when the damage of the skill was not being applied as full damage. So whenever, like, say you have a skill that says, like, it deals 20% of its total damage, then it's only doing, say, you know, if it does 100, it's only doing 20. Well, the poison was still doing 100 despite the fact that the skill was only doing 20, and the poison should have been matching the skill, basically point for point, and it wasn't. So it wasn't being cut down to 20%. It was doing the full 100%, so that's also technically a nerf for Twisting Blades. Sorceress, there were some issues with Flicker Step and Asu's not working with Teleport. That's been adjusted. Apparently, Oculus had some sort of bug where it wasn't upgrading properly at the blacksmith. That's been adjusted. Fixed an issue where Ball Lightning was dealing far more damage than intended, so another Ball Lightning nerf. They didn't nerf Ball Lightning in Season 2, but they are addressing all of the bugs with Ball Lightning now. And apparently there was some sort of bug where the ice spikes weren't working properly. They would just explode instantly instead of stabbing the monsters for you. I'm trying to remember what else in here was really all that amazing. I mean, they fixed some tooltip problems where things weren't displaying properly. I think that's pretty much it. Oh, they also fixed the durability bug. So if you guys remember the durability bug from where you would repair an item and then all your items would just miraculously break. So that's been fixed apparently. I was really annoying. A lot of the times I would go to upgrade my items or whatever, and then when I would upgrade the item, all my items in my inventory would just shatter, and I'd have to go repair them all, and I'd be like, why are all my items broken? Apparently this was happening to everybody, and it was a bug across the board. I don't even know why this kind of a bug exists, but it did. That pretty much covers everything. It looks like it's going to be a fun season. There's definitely some fun pathways to take on multiple characters. Meteor sorceresses, lightning druids. Looks like poison could be very fun with the new unique, the pain gorgers. There's definitely some interesting basic builds that could be made around the pain gorger unique gloves. On top of that, it does look like the meta is shifting a little bit. I really doubt Hoda and Ball Lightning, is going to be the meta this season. With the nerfs to Overpower, with the nerfs to Ball Lightning, and with the nerfs to Twisting Blades, we might be looking at a completely new meta landscape because the rogues might not be using Twisting Blades, the sorceresses are probably not going to be using Ball Lightning, the barbarians are probably not going to be using Hoda, and we're probably going to be moving toward something else. I'm not exactly sure what. We don't really have any powers this season. We do have a minion, so there's that, and you can customize that minion to your build relatively well. So that could be very interesting. Overall, I'm gonna have to see what's going on. Obviously, I'm going to be streaming for the patch on or launch day on the 23rd. If you're in the kinship, be sure to sign up on the sign up sheet. We have I don't think there's maybe 2 teams on there so far, but definitely could use more people to play with during the patch. Make sure you put in what build you're going to do too. I'm interested to see what people are going to pick. I'm kind of torn between starting as a penetrating shot rogue, a lightning druid, and I'm actually very interested in trying to come up with some kind of build around these pain gorgers gauntlets. I feel like there's a build to be had here. There's something really interesting that could be created here, really powerful. I just don't I'm gonna have to take some time and work it out. But these definitely seem like they could smack pretty hard. The one idea in my head that really comes up right off the bat is the basically the basic skill druid utilizing the poison claw, basically, so that whenever you hit a target with a basic skill, you're getting a poison effect to everybody nearby, right? So or rather to the person that you hit when you critical strike. Well, the interesting thing here is that, well, if you hit everything and you mark everything real fast, with one big AoE attack, and then you use your basic skill on one target, it's going to hit all of them, and it's going to poison all of them at the same time, which could be kind of insane, actually. Could be kind of insane. I'm not entirely sure. I'd be interested to hear what you guys have planned for this season. Even if it's just smack talk in Diablo 4. It's getting to the point where I like reading the smack talk Diablo 4 comments just because they're funny. I mean, you guys are pretty funny about it, to be honest. And I think that's pretty much it. Maybe we'll do some theory crafting the closer we get to launch. Maybe the day before launch, if you guys are interested, we'll do a theory crafting day, and we'll we'll try and figure out some really interesting builds and things like that. Maybe theory craft a meteor sorceress, lightning druid, so forth and so on. And yeah, should be pretty fun. I am super excited about this new music that I released today. So if you guys could do me a favor and head over and check it out, throw me some likes and some shares and stuff like that. And you know what? Let's play it one more time before we hop off today. So this is the new song. It's called From Hell, and we're just going to end the stream with From Hell. What makes this song special is it is literally composed of all of the sound effects from Diablo 2, if you guys are unaware of that. It has the skull sound effect, the rune sound effect, all sorts of really interesting things from Diablo 2. And if you listen really good, not only can you hear the sound effects, but Bale is actually screaming in there too. And the whole song is basically just comprised of Diablo 2. Like it's literally just Diablo 2 sound effects. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals joining me, and thanks for watching, and keep watching.